Thank you, everyone. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Destin City Council, August 15th, 2022, to order. Up first.
We just come before you thanking you for another day of life and thanking you for this great nation that you give us to live in, Lord. And Lord, I just feel led tonight just to lift up our military and our first responders, Lord. They're a huge part of this community, and Lord, we're just grateful to have them. We're grateful for all these people that serve in this city and on this council. And Lord, I pray for wisdom and guidance. And Lord, sometimes we just need patience and understanding. And Lord, I just pray that you would grant that along with the wisdom. And Lord, we just want to give you the glory and thank you again for all that you do for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
First up is agenda approval. If there's no changes, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion.
Second.
Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor? The vote is unanimous. So moved. Speaking of the agenda, we have a big, thick one tonight, so I'm going to try to be very businesslike here and press on. We don't have any proclamations or public announcements tonight, but we do in section 2, it's time for public comment. During public comment, you get 3 minutes. About 2 minutes and 45 seconds in, I'll ask you to wrap up your thoughts. You can talk about anything that's on the agenda or anything that's just on your mind that you'd like to share with the council. We do have a couple public hearings, and there's a separate public comment for that. So when you come up, don't speak to those hearings. You'll have another opportunity to be specific to those hearings. So without further ado, I'll start over here and work my way this way. Does anyone over here want to come on up? Come on up, sir. Just want to remind everybody, just turn the button on, state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm Bob Schmidt. I live at 833 Keller Drive in Destin, and I appreciate y'all taking the time for me to yap for a couple minutes. I've had the privilege the past couple months to travel with my grandson on travel baseball all over the region here, and it's come to my awareness, and I'm wanting to bring to your awareness, that there's a lot of ballparks throughout our region is exceptionally higher than ours. In other words, we're behind about 30 years in our ballparks, especially at the Morgan Center and the ballpark at Calhoun. So I'm just throwing out a challenge for us to take a look at these ballparks and let's upgrade our ballparks. I remember when we did the Morgans, I've been living here since mid-'80s, and it was a great facility, but we haven't done anything else. Yeah, we've put some fixed fences, done some things, some landscaping, but I'm talking about we need to be back first in line in this region with our sports complexes. We've got children here, overabundance. So I'm just bringing a challenge to you guys to see what you can do to help this community and the tourism that uses these ballparks to show it a first-class ballpark. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Up next, come on up there, Mr. Destin. Good to see you tonight, by the way.
Hey, it's good to be here. So I'm not going to be able to stay for the public hearing, so I'll be respectful and not try to commingle any hearing items. But I just wanted to touch that I don't believe that necessarily supporting a town center or supporting baseball fields is mutually exclusive to beach acquisition. There are multiple pots of money. There are going to be ways that we need to support and we can support the proliferation, expansion of the current athletic facilities. I'll stand shoulder to shoulder with you, supporting sports tourism and the acquisition of those types of facilities. I know we can go before Triumph. I know we can go before other TDC committees. I will join you. If there's anybody from Destin High School who wants to call my bluff and let's do it, I'm ready to go, because I do believe sincerely in sports tourism. I just don't believe that you have to pick one or the other. We can do them both, and I will make sure that that is the way we head. So anyways, enjoy your hearing and enjoy the rest of your meeting, but that's all I've got. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Parker, very much. Next. Over here, anyone? Out of the center? Nope, going over here. Come on up, Mr. Wood, I saw you moving. Still moving spry. Very spry. Must have took ibuprofen before you came.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Jim Wood, 3790 Misty Way. The last time I came before you, briefing my committee work plan for the Public Works and Public Safety Committee, I told you I'd be back tonight to tell you about my spending. Unfortunately, I didn't make the agenda. Maybe that's a good thing, since the agenda was full. But we did vote this past Tuesday. We had about $40,000-ish left over in safety money, and 80 to 100,000 in our own money. We voted to spend 70 so far. That 70 includes 40,000 for 10 pedestrian crossing signals like the one we have out here. Now, the one difference will be is when you push the button, there'll be a light that will come on and illuminate the pedestrian. So we'll see how that works. So, and we're buying 10 because we think on Airport Road, we might need one for each 2 lanes. We needed a couple extra ones. So we're going to see how those work. I think those are good things. We also have had 2 sets of speed hump requests, one on Beach and one on Stallman. Now, we don't have the estimates back for those, but figuring 7,500-ish per hump, that's a total of $70,000. Now, there are 3 projects we're going to be sending forward to the city engineer. One is a stormwater project on the corner of Misty Way and Airport Road, my neighborhood. We have a median island change I want to make coming out of Destin Water Users turning left onto Airport Road. I want to cut back one of the medians and give big trucks an easier turn coming out. And the third is we're looking out in the Destiny area at Four Prong Lake. Curtis Smith is one of our new members. He's brought that to us. That's probably a big, expensive project to try to figure out how to get that lake down in high water times, but we're going to take a look at that and see what it involves and what we might be able to do as a committee. So we've started off, my committee also likes things like lighted or flashing stop signs and flashing pedestrian signs. We didn't vote to do any yet, but we talked about those, so we may do some of those later in the year. And we left a little bit of money left in case something comes up. We got a little fudge factor to do whatever we want to do. So that's where we're at right now, and I appreciate your support when things come to you. When my things come, I'll be at the mic to present them to you and ask for your support. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
While we got him up here, anybody have any questions for Jim?
Thanks, Jim, for all you do in your
problem.
committee.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Smith's got one for you. Go ahead.
Go.
Are the 10 crossovers, or do you have any idea where those are off the top of your head? The
Well,
10, or is it not determined yet?
All of them are, we think 4 on Airport, the crosswalk to the right, you should turn off of Commons, there's one right there, and one over by the fire station are both dark. One of the issues is addressing mid-block dark crossings. That's what I'm trying to do. So I've asked staff to come back with some specific locations for us, but we're going to need at least 10 probably. And we have to check with the airport and the Turtle folks to make sure that the little lighted parts aren't issues for us. But if we do, we can buy the ones like we have out here that don't have the lights. So we're good either way.
Any of them on Old 98 in the Crystal Beach area? Because that's
We don't, yep, that's one of the places we'll look at.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
Everybody good? Thanks,
you.
Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Up next, anyone else? Come on up, Shane. See, Shane is limping.
Shane had a 14-foot needle stuck in his hip today to shoot WD-40 in there to see if it'll work or not, to try to avoid hip surgery. So, Shane Moody, President CEO of the Destin Chamber. I see there's an annexation policy approval on the agenda tonight. Just want you to know the Chamber has always been in favor of annexation. I've been here almost 19 years, and that was one of the things we talked about, maybe my first board meeting then. In fact, the Chamber is the only piece of property east of Fuddpuckers, north of 98, that is annexed into the city. And we did that, I think, in '06 or '07, it's a long time ago. In fact, David Pleat's here tonight. He might have been our chairman when we did that. So it's his fault. But we are in favor of it. The one key thing you have to remember when you're talking about annexation, they vote to annex in. It's not about what you're giving them tomorrow. It's about what you're giving them 7 years from now or 8 years. It takes tremendous vision and tremendous planning. But until you start collecting that annexed money, you can't really do anything. So have your plan in place of what you want to do when you get that money. Think 7 to 8 years, maybe 10 years down the road after it happens. And that's going to be the key to convincing people to annex. Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. Come on up, Matthew.
Citizen Matthew here. Actually, Matthew Pace, 3606 Goldsby's Way, Dustin. I wanted to just bring to your attention, I don't know if any of you have traveled down Melvin and Azalea for the Harbor Place townhomes. You know those wonderful townhomes that were going to be affordable in the $300,000 range that are now listed for $630,000. The property is a mess. And I just want you to keep an eye on it because as many times I've called the owners, which are now D.R. Horton, Shane has sold that property, I believe, and they have just completely neglected it. So I would ask the city, as the code enforcement officers, as they go around, please just be mindful. Some of the grass areas is taller than the fence that's there now, which definitely breaks the ordinance for keeping your neighborhoods clean, and I would know that. But, you know, that's just one of the things I wanted to bring up to you guys, just to keep mindful. I can't do anything about that development. I mean, it's already been approved and it's being built, obviously, but we can definitely keep that area a lot nicer. I walk that area pretty much every day. I do once a week, I do a cleanup. I take my tongs or whatever you call them, the little clippers, and I pick garbage up and I fill 3 bags a week with garbage, the amount of stuff that I'm picking off the side of the road. And it can be from toilet paper that comes out of the John's or whatever, to bottles and food from Whataburger and whatever else people just throw on the side of the road. So it's not going to be a bad development when it's finished. It just needs to be upkept while it's doing that. So that's all I wanted to bring up to you tonight. And I'd also like to say my niece is going to be up for the youth council. So she's a lot smarter than me. So just keep that in mind.
Looking forward to her
Thank you, guys.
participation in city government. Thank you, Matthew. Anyone else? Go ahead, come on up.
Sandy Trammell, 3823 Indian Trail, Destin, and the property adjoining the subdivision that he was just speaking about. We go out there every day, and they have put the particle board around the building, and it has rained on it, and it's warped now. Some of the back porch awning type structures are falling off of the houses. They're neglecting the total property. It would scare me to live in that property knowing that the outside walls look like that and the roof looks like that. Now, there's another property on Benning. Ma'am, they had the tar paper up there or whatever you put up there, and they had the shingles on and they did all of that while this has been sitting there for almost 2 months in the weather doing nothing but warping. And it's really, the construction in my mind is substandard to what Destin is expecting and to what the homeowners that are paying that kind of money should be expecting as well. So just keep an eye on that, please. Thank you.
Note the code enforcement. All right, anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of tonight's meeting at this time, because at the very end of the meeting is another opportunity for the public to make any comments on anything that we've talked about or done as a council up here tonight, and or if you just forgot something now and you want to talk about it later. So we'll have another opportunity. So the public comment period is closed. Is item number 3, which is consent agenda, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make that motion to approve.
I have a motion. And I have a second. Take a vote. Votes unanimous, so moved. All right, Lance, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4A is just a real brief update regarding the Destin High School request for a baseball field over at Morgan's. And the only update we have at this point is we're still awaiting a little more data from the school. Once we have that, we'll report back to you at our first meeting in September, which, by the way, is on the 8th because of the holiday and the county commission having to vote on their budget before we vote on ours, so it's a Thursday. But we'll be bringing that back to you. Hopefully, that will give us the data as well as our partners from Destin Water Users, the information we need to give to y'all to hopefully make a good decision on this. And that's all I really have on that item. Second item is adoption of a formal annexation policy, and we've briefly been talking about this. I'll turn this over to Mr. Zunguzzi. Louis?
Can you,
Do we have a plan to
One
take,
second.
or for the high school to present to the Parks and Rec Committee, since we are
They are.
talking about Parks and Rec, so are they going to their August 23rd meeting?
Thank you for bringing that up. It
Thank
is
you.
scheduled to go to the Parks and Rec Committee at their next meeting, which I believe is a week from tomorrow.
go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Let's talk annexation, and I'll be brief on this as you have a lot of the material in your packet. As you know, the city does not have a formal annexation policy for properties that are targeted for inclusion in the city. What has happened in the past is that there's been a petition that's been offered by property owners, and that comes to city council for review, and an agreement is entered into. Whilst that is okay, I think we need to have a formal policy that outlines our overall goal towards annexation, and also establish a series of procedures and standards for which we can review properties that needs to be annexed into the city. There are two major types of annexations that we typically encounter. We have city-initiated from a policy standpoint, and also property-initiated types of annexations. The goal for the city-initiated type of policies will be to, from our reviews so far, to address three key components. Number one, to ensure that we have continuity in our city borders. As you know, from time to time, you can drive out, a minute you're in the county, the next minute you're back in the city. We need to regularize that so we have clear border lines. Second, we need to be aggressive in trying to ensure that we grow our tax base, as well as our economic footprint. And we have properties to the east here that have tremendous impact on the city, and yet we accrue very little benefit from them. The third aspect is the tremendous impact on our city services, especially stormwater and the roadways for properties that are to the east of us and to the north, along 98. Quick pros and cons. This is just a map here to show just if we had to approach any annexation, we could go through that in phases. One phase is for the enclaves, and then the next phase is for economic standpoint, and then the rest is over time for the other properties that have an impact on our services. As far as the property owner-related types of annexation, there are several things we need to look at when we bring those in. Current zoning, that's an important aspect, so we compare that to what we have. Also, the future land use designation of these properties will be key to understand how that will be compatible with ours, and also compatibility of standards. Some of these roadways and infrastructure that they have is not quite up to the same level as we have standard-wise. So that would be another element of review that we need to take a look at. And obviously, the overall impact on our budget aspects. So just a quick summary here showing you the pros and cons of annexation. I think most of you can see that. The biggest aspect here for us is the ability to manage land use. That's so critical because it has the impacts to everything that I've just talked about. Obviously, an increase in our tax base is big. As a growing city, we need to be mindful of that. And then the rest of the stuff that you have up there is clear for you to see. What I needed from you tonight is just to give me a sense of how you feel about the approach we are taking. And if you're comfortable with it, we can come back to you with a formal policy that you can look at, review, and formally adopt. And then we can look at the instruments of how to get it done. I'll take any questions that you may have.
First up, Mr. Wagner.
So phase one looks pretty standard. So as far as two, that doesn't seem to be very residential. That's mainly commercial for two. So is that still fall under, they have to take a vote as a commercial land use, or is that, what does that look like for their?
So all the properties that we'll look at will go through that land use and all those criteria for review.
Okay.
But the target we looked at here is just an example. We grouped all those properties that have that economic footprint.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mr. Bagby.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the city council direct city manager to prepare an annexation policy for council consideration.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second.
Okay, and then I have one thing.
And then we have some people lined up to discuss, so thank you for the motion, sir.
Sure. You have the pros and cons from the city's perspective. When you develop this policy, I'd like for you to look at the pros and cons from the landowner's perspective, okay? Because one of the problems we've always had in this town is convincing, we were able to convince the chamber because they're the Destin Area Chamber of Commerce or whatever, but is convincing those landowners the benefits of coming into the town. And so I would like to see a slide that kind of details that out, and that's the only thing I would ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagby. My comments to this is, I know everybody on this council, and myself included, has had somebody call or email or stop us on the street and start telling about their issue or problem or idea, and then you have to politely tell them, well, you know you don't live in the city.
Yep.
And not only are those residents, but then the tourists are even more shocked to find out that Destin really isn't Destin in certain parts of Destin. So one of the points that Lewis points out is one of the responsibilities of the city that we should attain is to have concrete, easily identifiable borders within our town. The fact that we all understand the history about the carve out during Mattie Kelly's, the Kelly properties were carved out of the city when it was established in 1985, and as a result, they are very well developed and pricey pieces of property now. So I think if we want to square up our city, make it look like a city that people understand, and at some point, like Jim, what you're talking about, is you have to tell people that it's not just about annexing in for the city's perspective of gaining money. It's what does it do for the community as a whole. Shane said it best, it's a 7 to 10 year plan. There's a lot of things that we could do for all, including the only property left that for recreation, stuff like that, is over this way as well. So I think we just need to give them the opportunity to put together this policy. And once the policy is established, then the city council can start having discussions on when, how, where, and at what time. But right now, it's kind of, we don't have a policy to give you all guidelines on how to go through that process. Mr. Smith.
He's good.
Okay, and then Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, you kind of nailed it right there. I was just going to add that, if we're going to do this, we should take an 8-year vision approach, and whether it's this council or the next one in November, have that visioning session with the process, and that way we can work towards a goal and versus, just going through the process because it's the right thing to do. So I definitely agree. It's the right thing to do. We all live in the community, whether you know the borders or not, so I appreciate everyone making this first step. It's a good direction.
And I think in our visioning document, we did touch on that last spring with this council here. We did touch on that, and that was one of our priorities, was to explore or establish a policy. So without further ado, we have a motion and a second, and we'll go ahead and take a vote. Vote is unanimous, so moved. You have your marching order, sir.
Thank you. Whilst I'm here, Lance, can I just take the next two?
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Council, back in March of 2021, you directed staff to look at replacing the MMTD with a mobility fee-based plan, and this is an update on that item.
Yes, if you recall, when you gave us that directive, we said to you that the plan was to come up with a comprehensive list of all the projects that over time the city will be able to fund using the mobility fee. So we are at that halfway point of preparing that plan, and we have done the best we could to come up with a comprehensive list as far as we are concerned of those projects and so on, and initiatives. And we would like to have your input on it before we finalize that, just in case we miss something that of important to you, or any particular initiative that we might have missed. This would be an opportunity for us to remind us of that. So that's the purpose of the mobility plan update that you'll get. It's fairly lengthy and comprehensive. The second part is the impact fee update, which you also receive. If you recall on that one, we are so overdue to raise our fees. The question, again, we're halfway through our process, and we have the question to you to find out from you what level of scope and also the level of increase that you are comfortable with, that we can finally land on as far as the fee is concerned. And so I have the consultants who are preparing the report, or both of those reports here, for you to go over their findings to date, and we can have a discussion after that. Thank you. Would you, Alan and Tim, would you take it from here?
Yes, and for those that are scheduled to talk, we'll wait until these guys get done, and then you'll probably have more things to say. Go ahead, guys.
Good evening, Alan Steinbeck with 3TP Ventures. I'm very privileged to be working with the city on these projects. I will be speaking to items C and D on the agenda, which Lewis was referring to. These are listed as separate items, so there's one presentation for each. And I think it would be best to probably take questions on the mobility plan first, if you'd like, or whatever your pleasure is about the Q&A.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and because they are together but separate, let's just do the
Do a home
mobility
run.
plan first, and then we'll take comments, questions on that, and then
Okay.
we'll go to the next one.
Great, will do. So the agenda for this is to talk about the project status, give you a sense of the public feedback that we received in February of this year, and talk about this list of projects. We have come up with now a list of projects for the mobility plan. They're in concept, they've been developed, and we feel like we have a complete list. So tonight's goal is to run you through those concepts and give you a sense of what's in it, and also immediately following this meeting and during tonight's discussion to identify things that we may have not included that are important to the community, either you all or anyone in the community. So we're at an important part of the project where we have recommendations, and we're moving forward into detailing those out in terms of scope, cost, design, feasibility. So we're getting to the point in the project where we have to stay on mission, if you will, about further developing this, because there's lots of moving parts to get it done. The overall plan is to do a list of projects that the city can undertake. It's important for everyone to know that these are city projects on city facilities, city managed and owned. So this plan is for the city of Destin. It does not cover improvements that you might find on the state system. Our progress includes having done a full needs assessment as the first phase of the project, getting some feedback, and coming up with these projects now. And again, I said the next steps are really evaluating and vetting projects. There's some technical evaluation that's going to go on about the cumulative effects of doing all of this and some measured impact of these projects. But there's also just the describing of them and the scoping of them that's going to go on in the next few months. We want to get this project done by the end of the year so that we can move forward with all of the things that have to get done, including the impact fee updates that we're looking for. So these are some of the examples of the feedback that we got back in February. We asked what modes of transportation do people use to get around, and you can see the results. We had very good participation. Well over 100 people responded to the survey, both at the meetings that we held that some of you all were at, but then after that we left it open and really promoted people to answer questions. So we got some good feedback like this, and also asking people where they go. Parks, beaches, restaurants, and the Harbor District were the big answers from people from the survey. And also, this is really important here. Rank the following transportation emphasis areas in order of importance to you, where traffic flow and safety were the top things that people selected as important to them. And then asking about spending money. If you had $100, what would you spend on the following? And roadway improvements for traffic got 31% and was in first place there, followed by roadway improvements for safety, and some support for recreational trails as well there in third place. I'm going to go through a couple of slides now. This is now getting into the projects. We've done an assessment of the Crosstown Connector Corridor, which includes the current section that the city's working on and about to construct, and also just all of the connections that get you from end to end. And we've broken those down into different segments. The idea for this project is to make sure that in the end, the city has continuous facilities for all users, including people driving, cyclists, and pedestrians, and that there's sort of a continuous approach to the whole thing that makes sense to each of those users and makes sure that it's safe at the same time. So we've gone through and done some sections here that include all of these different segments, all the way from where Stallman Avenue meets 98 to Commons Drive, east of Airport Road, where it ends right near where we are right now. And going through these quickly, we've done some analysis of existing conditions and future conditions, and really two things have been assessed in this study of this corridor. One is to make sure that we have, where we can, side paths and trails that operate for pedestrians and cyclists, so that we do not have, in this future vision, bicycle lanes on the street. We have cyclists using side paths and trails everywhere that we can. And the city standard for that is to have them be 10 feet. A lot of the existing conditions are 8 feet or 5 feet of sidewalks, which isn't really enough room for both of those users to share that space. So there's some conditions out there where that's not the case, like the one you see here in the bottom of the slide. But the future goal is to have those side paths created. The other is to have the corridor developed further with lighting and landscape where possible, and also in certain areas to have better treatments of the median as well. So we've now assessed all of these segments. This is the second segment, Stallman Avenue north of Mountain Drive. Segment C is Azalea, where we have a situation where you have a lot of right-of-way to use and some opportunities to make a more boulevard type effect, and also have the geometry needed to accommodate some of the trucks that are out there in that part of the corridor. Azalea Drive west of Benning, again, also a wide right-of-way where we anticipate further trees, a separation, a median in the middle of the roadway to separate 2 lanes of traffic. And as a reminder, this whole corridor would be 2 through lanes of traffic the whole way. So that's been the idea, is to have that until you get to Airport Road, where it becomes 4 lanes. Azalea Drive east of Benning Drive, again, a further extension of this. I'm going to move through. All of this is for your information in the packet, but I'm going to keep moving through these to get to Airport Road, where Airport Road's an interesting example of a street the city constructed, and it's a place where we do have those limited sidewalks and side paths, 5 feet on the north side and 8 feet on the south side So we do have some constraints out there, but in the long run, there's some opportunities for safety improvements at crossings and also getting the additional landscape out there on Airport Road. And finally, Commons Drive, where you do have bicycle lanes and wide sidewalks and paths that get people around the park. And there's a lot of cycling traffic actually on Airport Road and Commons Drive, as well as a lot of the need to accommodate people driving out there as well. So that's the concept plan for the Crosstown connector. For US 98, as you all know, the Florida Department of Transportation is starting and working on a PD&E study for 98 west of Airport Road, looking at improvements that can be made there in the medium term here. And so what we've come up with here is a list of strategies that are important to the city, which is a list of things that really need to be emphasized within that PD&E study. To go over with them some areas like the status of the Marlar Bridge replacement and how that affects what's going on, looking at operational improvements at intersections, making sure that not just 98 traffic is being accommodated, but also that the side street traffic for Destin residents and neighbors and others is accommodated in the design as well. Thinking about a pedestrian pathway under the bridge at the western end of the segment. Doing some intersection design that may be unique and something that might not be normally coming out of the FDOT playbook. And then other things the city is currently involved in, like utilities relocation as well. And some other ideas like wayfinding to help people get to and from parking, especially in the Harbor District. So you can tell there's a lot of issues out there on 98 that relate to a future DOT project. And we want the city to be able to have its own list of things that it's advocating for in that process. And this is the first cut at this. So we're encouraging you all to support staff and our team in helping to flesh this out a little bit and have this resource available. We've also looked at Gulf Shore Drive, better utilizing the right-of-way with the concept of taking the 4 travel lanes down to 2 travel lanes, which will increase safety for drivers and others. It'll slow things down and make that curve less treacherous out there on Gulf Shore. Having facilities for everyone and creating a gateway to Holiday Isle that is a nice entranceway to that part of the city. We also have some small intersection improvements, and this map shows some areas. We wanted to look at places where we could improve safety and connectivity at intersections and do some intersection design treatments that made sense. So, and these are really emphasizing the neighborhoods of Destin and kind of going back and looking at some of these other places. The western segment, which includes Stallman and Calhoun, making this very much a walkable neighborhood, making sure that people, and down towards the Harbor District, has a high density and visibility for pedestrians and people, for neighbors and visitors alike who come to that part of the city for parks and other things. In the Main Street corridor, to make sure that safety is the utmost consideration there, making sure that each user of that part of the road has good operational access, but also safety. We've had some incidents out there and some things that make that an important aspect for Main Street. And we want it to be a destination place where we know more people are going to come there over time as that part of the city develops. For Commons Drive, it's really thinking about connecting to the future trail that's in the area, the Gulf Power Trail, and also making sure that Commons and Airport and that intersection continues to function effectively. And out on Scenic 98 and Crystal Beach areas, we've identified a few intersections where some crossing to and from the parking and the beach access could be improved in terms of safety and visibility. So those are our small intersection projects. We also have some other initiatives that are small project initiatives that include building road connections on right-of-way the city already owns, doing some other things that will help facilitate traffic flow and provide connectivity for different users. So everything I just told you are the bullets that are shown there in the gray. The plan also includes other things that are shown in the white, which are not detailed in this presentation, like Main Street streetscape improvements. Some work has been done in the past, but some additional work on that could happen, and some other issues about coordinating transit and parking, the Gulf Power Linear Park Trail, and some issues around sidewalk policies in the city. So we have a pretty long list of things in the plan at this point, and that's what it encompasses. Our next step there are to complete the scoping and cost estimating for priority projects. So Tim and I, Tim is with me here tonight, we've worked on identifying these projects, but they also need to be just fleshed out and detailed, and we need to come up with costs for them because that's the important link to the mobility fee, is having the costs in the plan to use in the fee structure. And so at this point, we have a list of projects and we have some maps. Very soon, we'll have a list of projects that everyone will be able to see and a map in hand that shows you everything that's in the plan. So in addition to hearing this kind of thing, you'll have resources that you can look at and you can see how it all kind of fits together on one map and one list of projects. So we'll get that circulated to you as soon as we can have that available, which will be counted in weeks at this point. So that concludes the mobility plan update. I don't know if there's a separate presentation for the other one. We're ready to go.
Well, we can stop at this moment, and I got a big list of folks that want to ask you some questions, so we'll
Okay.
just go do that while we have you there at the
Okay.
podium. Up first, Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. And I was looking at some of your prioritized projects, and I was questioning feasibility or the desirability of some of them. Gulf Shore Drive connects probably the highest density residential area in the city, and I'm trying to figure out how shrinking a portion of it from 4-lane down to 2 lanes is going to be possible, even desirable. Making it prettier, I get that. Making it with some landscaping and some islands like they've done in downtown Fort Walton Beach probably is all stuff that would be doable, but making it into 2 lanes, I don't know how that's going to work. And where did that concept come from? Was that encouraged by your charrettes you had with people? Did someone say that's a good idea? We want to take 4-lane section of Gulf Shore and make it 2 lane?
That idea surfaced with our team and working with the staff, looking at that project. I would never recommend making pretty to the disbenefit of utility of the road and its functions. And we have a traffic engineer on board who's going to help us look at that issue of the operational implications of it. But if you can get the approach to US 98 to be working, and you can get people onto that facility from 98 and crossing 98 effectively, that intersection is really the most important part of the capacity of that. Once you get past that, there's really not enough traffic to justify 4 lanes on the road in the first place. That's our initial view, but we'll be able to demonstrate that with some of the work that's going on with the traffic engineering as part of the project.
I'd certainly be interested in looking at that because it appears to me that the problem is you have to pause 98 traffic long enough to get Gulf Shores on, which probably says that your assumption that there's not enough traffic for 4-lane is not factual. So I'd be interested in seeing those solutions. I believe in miracles. Maybe we can find one. I also saw, let's see, intersection improvements, quite a few good things there. Of course, there are a lot of details here, and it's going to take a lot of selling to the public to go forward with this. Commons Drive, I saw a number of improvements to Common Drives. Of course, Common Drive's not within municipal city limits, so I'm not sure how we can go forward with that.
Yeah.
Of course, my friends from the county might be willing to give it to us if we improve it. But at the moment, it's not in the city limits. The part you had about looking at the intersection of Stallman and 98, of course, we're all looking for a solution to that, because without that solution, then the crosstown connector is just a disaster rather than a help. So that's one we really need to concentrate on, and on that point, I will turn it over to someone else.
Thank you, sir. Bobby?
So just so I can understand, this pathway is more about moving people through multiple vessels versus instead of a car, they're biking and walking from place A to place B in this case. Is there any priorities in having these go to parks specifically? This definitely seems to be the back roads, which is awesome that we're going to pretty them up. But I didn't know if we had any intention on making this more of a path that goes to the parks and places that we're building now and later.
Yeah, I think, well, the big one for some of those intersection improvements in that neighborhood to the west is to and from Leonard Destin. And, making sure that you can get safely to and from that park without going to park there. Obviously, what happens on Airport and the segment of Commons, which is just the segment from Indian Bayou west, we're not talking about the whole thing. Getting that done right, you all know, you see people biking and walking around there all the time. So those users are important, and getting them to and from those places, as well as the beach parks, is the other thing I would emphasize in this.
Gotcha.
We have gone to visit all of the parks, and I think there are some places where we can do some things. So we could add some additional ideas and kind of revisit that as something that we do here in this phase of the project.
Awesome. And then my last comment would be on Commons Drive. As we eventually take that over, I would love to see a turn lane. I know that's kind of what holds up Commons Drive the most, is whether it's coming from the residential or going into Morgan's, you're backed up because you're trying to turn and you're holding up everyone behind you. So I think that would be a huge benefit to the cars while we make the pedestrian path good, is having that third lane on Commons. So, great. Just a comment.
Thank you.
Ms. Abear.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Mr. Destin addressed a few of my concerns as well. And of course, this is all 3 to 5 years out. None of this is happening within the next 24 months, correct? So we're looking at just getting things on is what we want to pursue, but there's time, at least years before this goes through. So hopefully we do put some annexation in place and we can get Commons Drive. But just wanted it to be on the record, this is something that's 5 years out.
Correct, and more, and further. It's a long-range plan to serve the community, yes.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. Looking at your concepts here at the Stallman Avenue north of Serby Street, Section A, and then the next one, Stallman Avenue north of Mountain Drive, Section B. Is that working in the right-of-way that we currently have? 60 feet, 65 feet?
It is, all the segments are in right-of-way, are owned by the city. So Tim checked and made sure that all of our concepts are within city right-of-way. No right-of-way acquisition would be needed to accomplish any of the concepts we've shown.
So the parking, looks like on-street parking, Section B is the Stallman north of Mountain Drive. Is that the parking we currently have at the cemetery, or is that additional parking to that?
What we're showing is existing parking. There's parallel spots there on the street.
Okay. My only other comment is Legion Drive is Section F, Legion Drive west of Benning Drive. I don't think we have a Legion Drive west of Benning Drive.
We may have
That may just be a typo.
Yeah, we might have missed the naming. The name changes so many times over there. We'll double check on that.
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Mr. Bagby.
Thank you, Mayor. And Ms. Trammell and Mr. Destin will tell you, thank you for the tunnels. I've been pushing those for 16 years, and I wanted 3 when we were going to have 3 parking lots north of 98, and I love to see some tunnels. I had a little issue with some of the disconnects. So when people were going to spend $100, they were only going to spend $5 on transit. Yet both your slides say, we're going to have mass transit stops, or we're going to have planning for mass transit. Why even put that in? I mean, that transit on the slide ranked the order of priority. It looks like transit's about a third, in 5th place, last place, about a third of what 4th place got, but we didn't have any numbers there. So might be 25%, might be 40% of the 4th place. Why are you proposing, other than I know transportation planners love mass transit and they want to put it everywhere, but that's not what we asked for. That's not what the people in the survey asked for.
So it's a coordination issue, first and foremost, because others are providing it, and the city's not currently paying for the service. We're not recommending that the city put money into operations and paying for operations of transit. We're recommending coordination of the location of the stops, because there are some defined locations in the transit development plan that are slightly different from, I think, where the city might otherwise want to put them. So we need to work through that in this. But we have not identified the need for the city to spend any money on transit through this plan, just to clarify. It's a really coordination issue.
Okay, because we have bus stops or bus pullovers or bus pullouts or whatever you call them all throughout the city, and most of them do not get used, but that was part of the plan when we, every time we have somebody do one of these studies, we're going to have transit. We're not. And I kind of echo, I believe, the same thing that Mr. Destin touched on Gulf Shore Drive. Traffic flow was the number one priority, far and away. You gotta, going north on Gulf Shore Drive, you have to have 3 lanes because you have some people going straight across, you have some people going down on the harbor, and you have some people turning to go to Crystal Beach or Walmart or wherever they're going. You take that to 2 lanes and you try to take that one travel lane north into 3 lanes, and all you're going to do is have a cluster. And traffic flow is what the people want. Let's give them the traffic flow. So that would be my only point.
Just to clarify for you all, we do intend to leave the approach lanes it'll fan out, and all the approach lanes will still be there for that segment.
Okay.
The harder one is people traveling across 98 south onto it. So that's.
Let me ask this question. Right now, it goes 4 lanes into Holiday Isle, and then it next down to 2 lanes into the Holiday Isle Improvement Association area. Where, because you say you're going to leave it at 3 lanes headed north and 2 lanes headed south, where are you going to neck it down to just 2 lanes? Obviously not where it currently does, so where? Before the turn?
Before the curve, yes. And we have a, and one of the benefits would be the slowing of traffic going into the curve and making it that safer, that part. Really, the eastbound movement and to the north is the one that's a little more problematic in terms of safety. But we have an engineering firm that's going to look at all this and assess all of these issues of operation, safety, and making sure that we don't do something that boogers the place up.
The only thing I would say, and I understand the safety aspect, that because that curve is dangerous and we put up a railing and everything, I got that. Go out there on a Saturday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the summer when all those people are trying to turn off 98 and get to their condo down there, and you won't even have enough queuing space for them to all get into that 2-lane because it backs up already. So I would, I'm sure your engineers will do a good job.
We might be able to improve that situation as well. Queuing up on 98 and getting off 98 into the neighborhood, yes.
Yeah, and Bobby, I'll take you one more time. Before we get into weeds on this is just the study part, and they're going to give us all these different options. There'll come a time where we set priorities and decide on how it all plays out. So this is we're real preliminary here. So I just want to make sure that we don't go down that road. Bobby, with that being said.
And that was kind of what I was worried about, because it kind of goes from, it's preliminary to, we're past the 30% plan.
Nah, you're exactly right. I
was just making sure we're at 0 right now.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to keep it at the 30,000 foot level for the discussion.
So my last 30,000 would be, I would love to see the reclaimed water follow through, and that would be a good win-win for everyone.
Okay, we're not there yet. Go ahead.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
I think I got cleared out, so thank you. A lot of the comments have already been made. One quick note on the Holiday Isle thing is, in the past 6 months, I've had 2 people, different times, that live there, and 1 that doesn't live there, that have had this exact idea. So it's just kind of an interesting coincidence. It's an interesting conversation. 2, there's been a lot of discussions in the past months about curbs. Is this the time and these thought process about what kind of curbs we have on these mobility roadways?
I think you cannot separate curbs from stormwater and managing stormwater. Those discussions go hand in hand.
Right.
So, and it depends on why one wants a curb.
The curb style or the curb
style.
type.
Curb and gutter.
Curb and gutters,
Yeah.
these F-ribs and flat things. And I just, if this is part of these mobility plan discussions and just thoughts, I would want to make sure we weigh that heavily as it sounds like in recent discussions, we have different types of styles around here, and I would like to make sure that's an important topic to be considered.
Okay, I would say that matters most when designing and implementing things. If the city wants to be in the business of doing some street retrofits then I think that would be more important to this plan, especially if the curb serves some purpose that is transportation-related safety or capacity, then they become relevant. I think there are limited benefits either way to the safety issues and that curbs provide, and they're not really a capacity improvement. So the mobility plan, we're trying to focus on capacity improvements as a function of the legal status of it that it has to have. But I think we'll bring that up in our we have weekly meetings, we'll talk about that, and we'll get some engineering advice on that topic here.
Thank you very much. On to round two on the next.
Okay, we'll keep going. This is about impact fees. We have been working on this. We're working on updating the impact fees for library, parks, and public safety in conjunction with doing the mobility fee. And so this presentation is an update on where we are with the status of that. We're trying to make them go together all at once. So the mobility plan work and the work required to update these impact fees is going forward in a way that we can have one impact fee study that the city approves and reviews, where all of the fees get updated at the same time. So there's a little bit of staging that's going on, and the impact fee, we're setting this up to immediately follow the plan and be ready at the time that the mobility plan is prepared. We've gone through and we've been working on the nuts and bolts of it. It's a very complicated topic. It has legal ramifications that I'm going to talk about. It also has lots of technical aspects of calculating fees that are beyond the scope of this conversation. But it takes a lot of analysis and work to get these prepared. So we're doing that in the background, but I wanted to talk about the fee structure tonight because it's the dollars and cents aspect of this. When we had our engagement in February, we asked people about parks and library services in particular because of the working on this topic. So we included those in here. We asked people, when was the last time you visited a City of Destin park? Within the last week, 45% of respondents said that. So you have a community where 50% of the community is going to a park once a month, more than half the people here, which is a pretty significant thing and a positive thing. We had a lot of people respond about going to the beach, that your residents enjoy the beach access. It's not just visitors, but residents of Destin are going out and going to Destin's beach parks as well. When was the last time you visited the Destin Library? We had 9% visiting within the last week, and you can see within the last month or 6 months you have 17 and 12%, and if you add those up you get 28%, 38%, so a pretty large proportion of people who are going 6 months to the library.
At that time, they did not have the internet capability to download Libby right off the internet from the library. So I think if you did that survey now, the books a lot of them are on hold because a lot of people are accessing the internet now with our Destin Library online.
Okay, great. Yep, and there was a little bit of end of COVID era stuff going on over the library too when we took this survey. That was, people had stopped going over there, for a time. And then here's the thing that this is perhaps the most interesting outcome of this to me. If you had $100, what percentage would you spend on the following? And here's where we mixed transportation in with parks and recreation. And you had people have an even split between what the community would want to spend on parks and recreation and transportation. So as important an issue as transportation is to everyone, and it's always a hot button topic about traffic, people highly value the parks of this community and wanted to invest in them just as much as they wanted to invest in transportation according to the outcome of the survey. So I think that was something that it's not going to leave me. I learned that at that moment we did this. So there's going to be some legal stuff I'm going to talk about. You may already know this by heart, but I think it's important to talk about the legal parameters for local governments and impact fees. Impact fees collected must be spent on infrastructure and facilities. They must be capacity improvements, and they can't be used for maintenance or operations, with a very few exceptions. Impact fees cannot cure deficiencies relative to existing level of service. So if you have ideas for doing a grand improvement and are asking future people to pay for it, but you're asking them to pay a lot more than current people are paying, that's a no-no. You cannot cure deficiencies with the impact fee. And lastly, you must have a plan for how and when money will be spent or could be considered an exaction. So this one's a little looser, but if you have no plan for how you're going to spend your money, you can get challenged because you don't really have a rational nexus between the fee and what you're going to do with it. So those I would say are the big three. There were some changes that happened last year about increasing fees. Fees have to be based on recent and localized data, which currently the fee structure that you have does not, because it's based on very old data. So this update satisfies that legal requirement. You have to provide some notice when you're updating these plans. Impact fees may not be increased by more than 50% over 4 years, and then they have an escalation schedule that's put in there, so only 12.5% over a 4-year period. So you're limited in how you can do this unless you do these other things. So they give you an out, and you can increase your fees by more than 50% if you have a demonstrated need and study that justifies the increase, which our impact fee study will do. If you've demonstrated the extraordinary circumstances necessitating the need to exceed the phase-in limitations. So it's not just, did I do a plan, but are there extraordinary circumstances? And I would suggest that the length of time since doing the last fee structure and the fact that the cost of materials and construction have gone up so considerably in the last few years constitute extraordinary circumstances that would cause the government to want to update their fee structure. So so far we have a 2-legged stool, which is not as good as a 3-legged stool from this, but those are the big two that I've seen being used. In order to have it increase more than 50%, you have to have 2 public notice meetings, and you have to have the fee increase adopted by a 2/3 vote of your elected board. So it's harder to get it passed because more people have to vote for it instead of a standard majority. So some limitations there. So the policy direction question tonight, that as you listen to the rest of this presentation, is a 50% increase enough, or do we want to target a higher fee increase? So conceptually, do we feel like we can go down this road of 50% only, or more is better? So the rest of this is to help put some of this into context. There are 2 types of fees. There's a consumption-based fee, where fees are determined by calculating the value of improvements for different land uses and dividing that by the number of people that exist here today. So what that means is the consumption-based fee, for example, we would add up all the value of the current park system and divide the value of that current park system by the people who live here now and the users who are here now, and you would have a parks per person amount. Your existing level of service would be based on an amount of parks per person. You would then take that value, and that would become your impact fee. That next person who shows up in Destin would pay their proportionate share of that same parks per person value. It's a very straightforward thing, and it's something that's based on existing conditions. There's also the improvement-based fee, where you come up with a plan, and you say, here's all the stuff that we want to do, and all that stuff costs X amount of dollars, and we have so many thousands of people showing up in the next 20 years, and we're going to divide all that stuff by 20,000 people, and the future people are going to pay for this plan. That's the current situation with the mobility fee, and that's what we propose the mobility fee to be, is like that. So there's 2 different approaches. The improvement-based is more complicated because you really do have to test for level of service still and make sure that your plan for the future isn't so big that you're charging those future people way more than you should be. Yeah. And that's the basic premise. So we have both of those types of fees in this community now, and we're proposing both of those types remain, where parks, library, and public safety are both those consumption-based fee, and the mobility fee is improvement-based, or based on the plan that we're creating. So with the parks, this is about the history of this. The parks has been based on that level service model, the consumption model. The current adopted fee is $3.99, and this is the first part in the presentation where I'm showing the 2007 recommended fee. At the time the impact fee study was done, the recommended fee was $1,944. And in 2007, the council at that time adopted a current fee at $399. Yeah. I'm going to keep going. There we go. It's a white SUV that's going up. Yeah. So looking over to the right of the slide, you'll see that if you didn't go down the extraordinary circumstances route, you'd be able to take that fee up by 50% and get $598.50 as your new parks fee, relative to $399 is what you have today. Library, same method. This is sort of that, still some technical language about that. A library divided by the current people, and that's what your fee structure is. This one is currently set at $133. The 2007 study recommended $344, and the fee would go from $133 to $199.50 if the fee were raised by 50%. And police is a little different. The public safety fee is charged to everyone. The parks fee is charged to residents and hotel users. The library fee is charged to residents only. The public safety fee is charged to everyone, residential and non-residential users who come into town. It is currently fairly low at $19. This is for a typical dwelling unit, and that fee would go up to $28.50 if we're raised by 50%. And transportation was based on a roads-only multimodal fee that went to a multimodal fee. So at the time the multimodal transportation district was put into place, the fee became a multimodal fee, and it could be spent on any type of transportation. And that's been the regime that's been in place ever since. For future fees, again, we're talking about improvements doing it based on the plan that we're creating. So the plan and all the stuff in it will cost a certain amount of money in today's dollars, and we'll use that plan to calculate a fee for the community. So this is to give you a sense of how the fees structure. If you haven't looked at the impact fee schedule in a while, it is based on square footage and goes from, depending on the square footage of your dwelling unit is what we're seeing here. There's an assumption about household size that we're making, and we're using this in the looking at long-term units in the community. This is the key part here is the number of people per household, and this really gives you a sense of how the fee is affected by number of bedrooms. So when we look at a number of bedrooms in a home, we have average square foot in there, and also an average persons per household that is used to calculate the impact fee. So the more bedrooms, the more people in bedrooms, the higher the fee will be, and the bigger the house, the fee will be. So it's not just like one unit is paying one fee, they're paying different fees. The one change to the fee structure that we're proposing to make is to have short-term rentals now be a category as a use category. What we currently have is a dwelling unit as a dwelling unit, but we're proposing a distinction between long-term rentals, which would be more permanent, and the short-term rentals, which are categorized and have their own status. And the goal here would be to appropriately account for the impact that those short-term rentals are having on the community. It's widely believed that they have a higher impact than a normal house on the streets. More people live there, come there, stay there, and go around town. So they would be paying a higher proportionate fair share of their transportation improvements. And we have a maximum occupancy that's used to calculate the number of people in these units. The comparison here is important. If you look at that 80% max column, so looking at a 2-bedroom across 80% max would be 6.4 occupants in a short-term unit versus 1.49 in a long-term unit. And the bottom line of the math of that is a 2-bedroom short-term rental would be paying more than 4 times as much in impact fees as a long-term rental unit house with permanent residence in it. If one converts a home from a long-term rental to a short-term rental, they would have to pay the difference in those impact fees. So it would, every new short-term rental that gets established in the city would fall under this impact fee structure and have to pay that additional fee as they got that status. That's one part in the weeds that I think is an important policy decision that we want to make sure we're going the right direction there on that particular item. And then we looked at every community around and what they charge. If you see on the right side of this table where it starts with law enforcement these are the fees that are some of the fees charged by the city of Destin. A lot of people in the community charge for other things like water and sewer and fire. Very few communities charge for the same things that the city of Destin charges for, but we wanted to look at those, and these are the other local jurisdictions in this region and part of the world that also charge these same kinds of fees, and we compared what Destin does with these other communities. So you can see how things stack up with respect to law enforcement and how it's relatively low compared to other communities. Transportation, we have the one example of Mary Esther, which we're right in line with them on that, just incidentally. Parks and Recreation, there's more than one to choose from in comparison here. And you can see that Destin is sort of right in the middle, but maybe slightly lower than the average of those others. And then the library as well, where Destin's library impact fee is actually higher than the other two that we could find, which is Bay County and Panama City. And really, it's important to look at these individual categories. It's also important to look across the board at the total value of our impact fees because they do have an impact on development, cost of development, housing, and other things that are important goals of the community as well, not just to collect the fees, but understanding how it affects the future of the city. So you'll see on the right there, those current fees for a typical dwelling unit is just over $2,000 in fees that they would pay compared to those other levels you can see in those other communities. So last slide here, we've completed this policy framework. We've done an inventory of all the assets in the city. We're working on cost estimating those assets now for the sake of calculating fees, and we've done population projections. We've made some baseline assumptions, some of the technical aspects of the plan, and have started some cost estimating for transportation as well as the other fees. And of course, this mobility fee project identification was important. So we'll be working on this over the next few months to calculate fees and be able to have a fee based on our inventory, and the mobility plan will wait a little longer. We'll have that later in the year, towards the end of the year. That concludes my presentation on that.
All right, I got a question for you.
Yes.
We're about to undertake undergrounding of Highway 98 from Arla Bridge to Airport Road, and I think we've talked about eventually undergrounding the entire city. Now, would that fall under the extraordinary circumstance? Because we haven't had it before, so we're not doing a fee structure to pay for something we already did to help pay for it. This is actually something that's in the process of being done. It's going to affect everybody in the entire community. So could you charge a fee or increase it more than, we're not charging one now, so anything would be more than a 50% increase. Would that fall under that?
Are you suggesting as a function of the transportation fee or as its own thing?
Probably part of the transportation, I would think.
As it's not a capacity improvement that helps move people along your transportation system, it doesn't fit within the transportation fees mission.
Should it fall under the other category?
Well, I think I don't know of a case of someone in the state doing that for utilities alone, for varying utilities. We could look harder, but I haven't heard of that happening.
Yeah, I was just asking because that it has to be an extraordinary situation to go above that new statute, which says no more than 50% increase.
You still have to meet the rational nexus to transportation. Now, the one thing I would say about it though is if you have to build a road and you just happen to need to buy right of way and to move things around and work on stormwater there's some gray area there that things, stormwater as a function of a transportation project is part and parcel to the transportation project and therefore eligible to be used for fees. Relocating utilities can be part and parcel to a transportation project that is a legitimate transportation project. And it can be incorporated into the cost of a project and paid for by the fees. As a standalone thing,
Not so much.
you're out on a pretty long limb.
Okay.
Legally, yes.
And seeing how, and you made mention that we're dealing with old information, I think 2006 was the last time they set up the fee structure. How old were y'all, 2006? Things were a lot cheaper than I do know that. Right. So right now Paxton, Laurel Hill and Valpy are the only ones that have a lower fee structure than we do in the local community. So I think we probably need to reevaluate it's clear that we got to reevaluate our fee structure, especially for things to come as you said you could not use it to address capacity issues today, but you can utilize this fee structure when you establish it for what you know is going to happen in the future, correct?
Yes, and you can use it to solve capacity problems. You can't use it to remedy something that's above and beyond what we're currently suffering from today. It's really weird how it works, and it's kind of hard to get your brain around. But it's really about how much you charge, and that's where the equity of it comes in, to not making them pay for more than your current residents enjoy or suffer from, as the case may be. In your.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. The slides are very, very detailed and beneficial. I appreciate it. The Florida statutory requirements for increasing the fees, are all 4 of those bullet items required to be met? Or are those just some examples, at least one, or how does that work?
If you want to increase your fee more than 50%, then all of the bullets on that slide have to be met in order to do so.
So,
yes.
do we have bullet 2, the extraordinary circumstance?
That's what I was referring to, the two-legged stool, which is, it's been so darn long since you've done this, and then the second is costs have increased, especially in this unforeseen weird set of circumstances that we find ourselves in.
So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Who justifies that you met these requirements? Legal counsel, like consultants, or is it just after the fact, later on down the line, if somebody wants to come after us?
I just finished a study for a large county where I explained that to the attorney, and they said, okay, those 2 are good enough.
Sure.
So we have at least one example where, that's going to the Board of Commissioners. Whether that holds up in court or a challenge or not.
Yeah.
It's very rare for people to challenge impact fees. They get challenged when a community really makes them very high. And for obvious reasons, people fight against that, and they'll find anything they can to sort of undermine the logic of that. I haven't seen a community that puts a real reasonable, solid foundation into a fee and a good decision about a fee, just be challenged out of the blue for some of this stuff. So I think those will be enough to constitute it. But we don't have any case law because the thing's only a year old, and there's only been so much work done in the past 12, 18 months to respond to it. Yeah.
Mr. Wagner.
Do we have any language in here for promoting green buildings or anything for law and sustainability? I know a lot of different muni codes that I've dug into in Florida have those kind of incentives to either, go back on the cost or some kind of incentive in there for language. I mean, we talked about, hurricanes and everything else coming through. We talked about rising tides. This is a great opportunity for us to make a name for ourselves and try to be something new, and that would be sustainable.
The impact fee study does not have that. It is limited. You have to assess the replacement value of things. So like the community center, for example, which is not a green building, we couldn't put the cost of building a new community center all green in the impact fee because it's not a like kind of thing. So the impact fee study may not be the place to advocate for the thing that you're talking about, but the city still may need to be determined to do that and make that happen irrespective of how the fee is.
What part of the fee do we talk about that language? what part of the process do we talk that language?
Like I said, you have to have a plan for how you're going to spend the money. So the description of that plan is the place where we need to have those words incorporated.
And for me, I mean, this would be a plan to help them reduce the cost. It would actually help them get a credit back. And Tampa and a lot of other cities have a lot of different codes and a lot of different mathematical equations that they've already gone through and approved. So I would just, I'm going to be adamant about, making sure that we have incentives for better buildings.
Yes, and even the improvement in operational cost is not an impact fee problem because the impact fees can't be used for that. So there's some disconnects. It's not a perfect way avenue to get all of that stuff accounted for, if you will. But there's ways we can include that conversation in there.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yep, okay.
Ms. Abear.
Thank you, Mayor. Bobby kind of addressed part of it about the incentives. I got an email from a constituent to clarify impact fees, meaning if we increase them, and we were talking about it would go for those that were coming, so those that are currently paying, would their fee increase, for the record?
No. No one who's already living here and has no intention of changing the use of their property has to pay an impact fee. It's not like, yeah. It's only if you build
Well,
something.
that's what I wanted
but-
to clarify. It's the building or increasing what you have or shifting from a long-term live home to a short-term, then you change what the impact fee at that point would be. But those that are currently living here in a single-family dwelling, they're not
Correct.
changing. Everything is
They're not
fine.
paying impact fees, yes.
I knew that. I wanted
Yep.
it on the
Yep.
public record, so
Yep.
people
Thank you.
listening be like, wait a minute,
It
they're going to
doesn't-
raise my
yeah,
fees.
Thank you. It doesn't go without saying, and I didn't mention that, but yes, thanks.
Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't see any comparison for the impact fees in Okaloosa County or Crestview or Niceville or Fort Walton. Do they not have them?
Some of those are on that longer list that, there's a
Are
there's
they
a
on the
slide
longer
there-
list?
Yes. The last slide, we sifted out everything that didn't have a fee like Destin's.
Mhm.
So the one I spent a few minutes on were just the ones that have the same types of fees that you do. The preceding slide is the whole list. Yeah. Yeah. There's some places that don't collect them, and that may be the reason why they're not there.
Yes, Okaloosa County is one of those. I believe in the point I would make is, Teresa's right. These are only applied to new people who want to build a home or a condo or a business in Destin. I think our average was 2,000. Is that what it was? Somewhere in that
That's
area?
for a typical dwelling unit, yes.
Yeah, and that's for a typical dwelling unit, and if that typical dwelling unit is, let's say, 300,000, which we know is pretty hard to find in Destin right now, I guess when you take your homestead exemption, you would be paying about, with the city's taxes, maybe 300 a year. So this impact fee represents 7 years' worth of ad valorem taxes that you pay up front. Now, I was the advocate for impact fees when we first adopted them a long, long time ago. And the Home Builders Association was burning me in effigy and were very upset, as were a number of people who were building large condominiums and large housing developments. Even though we took the study and cut the fees in less than half, they still were very unhappy. Now they've learned to live with it, but we did get sued. In fact, when Mr. Lockwood was on the other side of this game at one time, he represented a developer that sued us over impact fees, if I remember correctly. And because we had cut all our impact fees dramatically, they didn't prevail and we did. But make no doubt about it, if some great big project wants to come into Destin and we assess them with millions, hundreds of thousands, we could be challenged and have been challenged in the past. The other thing that bothers me about going past the 50% is that we're making it much more harder for people to build and live in Destin, whether it's homes or businesses. We're slamming that gate shut, which I know a lot of us in the past have thought that was a wonderful idea, but it's really not a very fair idea, or most of the people in this room wouldn't be here tonight. So we want to be careful as we go forward with impact fees that we don't make them so expensive that they're onerous, and we make it where people can't live in Destin. They can't move to Destin anyway. It won't affect the ones that are already here. Thank goodness I'm here. I won't have to pay any impact fees. But is it fair to prohibit the other folks from coming? It is fair to have them pay their fair share, to build the roads, to the libraries, the public safety. The question is, at what level does it not become fair anymore? As Mr. Bagby pointed out, and I was supportive at our budget hearing last week, we don't create any money here. We just take it from the folks that live here and put it over on another project. And how comfortable do you feel, and how much do you and should you take from the people who live here? So we need to look at the impact fees and come up with a reasonable increase, but going more than 50% one year, that's a little hard for me to swallow.
Thanks for that input. I appreciate it.
Mr. Bagby.
Yeah, I was here in 2007 when we did this, and Mr. Destin made the same points. And you have to remember, at that time, the big thing was redevelopment. We're going to do redevelopment, and we didn't want to punish people who were going to redevelop some of these older properties or some of these lots that had trailers on them, and there were a lot back in 2007, and so we didn't want to make it cost prohibitive for people to improve the lots. And I originally started out on the other end of, we have a policy, it's a written policy, and we should charge whatever the cost is. And the charge, if the staff and the experts told us it was $1,900, well, then that's what we are, $1,300 or whatever, that's what we are charged. But after listening to Mr. Destin, because, and I mention this because when we get into incentives, when you be careful, because no good deed goes unpunished. And what you incentivize, you might think you're incentivizing one thing, but you're going to get something entirely different. What we thought we were incentivizing was redevelopment. And what, in fact, we incentivized were monster houses that became short-term rentals. And so I have no problem with, in fact, I like the fact that you broke out short-term rentals from long-term residential units. I would go by square footage, because if you go by bedrooms, I think I've mentioned this a couple of times before, you'll have a 2-bedroom with 4 parking spots and a library and a media room, and they all have connected bathrooms, by the way, but they're not bedrooms. So, but we can have that debate further down. I think we do need to increase it. I don't think we need to increase it probably by more than 50%, but on the short-term rentals, I probably would increase it whatever the cost this council deems exists, would be fair. But for people who are living here, we still want them to redevelop some of these older homes in the older part of the city and do that. So I wouldn't make it cost prohibitive for them to do that. The other thing it feeds into is we've talked about annexation, okay? Those people, these fees would apply to them. And if you say, oh, you're paying nothing for an impact fee in the county, so you can build whatever you want, but if you annex into the city of Destin, we're going to sock you with a $6,000 impact fee. So, yeah, only if you're building. True, only if you're, but there's a lot of undeveloped land.
Don't get confused. This is not a tax on your annual tax bill.
No, I got it, but trust me, I understand that, Mayor, but there's a lot of undeveloped land it's developed. They haven't built the houses yet, I'll put it like that, on some of those areas, and they have entitlements to some of those parcels of land that they could build more houses or townhouses or whatever. So I tend to be more where Mr. Destin is, except for the short-term rental houses, and then it is what it is.
And I'm going to wrap this up. One of the things that you pointed out, and I think is something that we can consider, is that you can do that 50%, up to 50% increase over a 4-year period. So it's not like you're slam dunking everybody. At the present rate that we're getting right now, a 50% increase for a permit to build a home would go from $2,087 to $3,130. So if you're buying a $300,000 lot and building a $600,000 house, you pay it $3,130. And these fees haven't been risen since 2006. And when you build that house, regardless, you're going to be driving on the roads, and you're going to be going to the community center, and you're going to be, your kids are registered at Morgan Sports Center. And so our fee structure right now is extremely low, even panhandle wide. Like I said, there's only 3 communities that charge less than us: Laurel Hill, Valpy, and Paxton. I don't know if you've been through those places, but you could probably understand why. But anyway, so that's why I think, especially to be conservative like Mr. Destin is talking about, you have 4 years at 12.5% to increase your impact fees over the next 4 years, which gives people that have lots and plan on building, they can take all that into consideration. But as you said, we don't make any money, so how do we address the stormwater issues and all these other issues that new house is going to create in the community? So I think it's a balancing act, an issue of fairness, like you said. And I think the 50% increase over a 4-year period is about as fair as it can get, unless we just do nothing.
And Mr. Yeah. And this is, last thing I'll say, it's only one piece of the puzzle. We will do the math. You'll know what the actual cost is, and you'll be able to see, like, what's our park system worth? And there'll be more to the equation that'll help you make a good decision.
We probably have $30 million worth of just Bayside parks. So, I mean, and we're fixing to, on our agenda, talk about $37 million worth of Gulfront parks. So, yeah, I'll be looking forward to that portion of it. And I just want to thank you for that and look forward to the continued development of all these things over the next few years.
Thank you.
Lance?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next up, we got item 4E, which is a good day for the city of Destin. I can think back to when Mayor Severs had championed getting a youth council going in Destin, Florida. And I think we're fortunate, I may be wrong, but I think 4 of the council members are here tonight that championed that along with her. So Ray, can you take it from here and let them know we've got enough to get our youth council reformed tonight?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, our maximum membership is 14. Tonight, we have 11 applicants, and we provided you copies of their applications. 3 of those applicants live outside city limits. They are identified in the report. If you recall, several years ago, you approved an amendment to the bylaws allowing 3 at-large members, and you appointed some in the past. So this time we have 3, which is the maximum. So you can either do individual appointments or
I'm going to do the motion.
Appoint as a group if you want
Mayor,
to.
I'll make that motion. Procedures for nomination and appointment of applicants within the council's discretion. I move to appoint all 11 applicants to the Destin Youth Council.
Second.
I got a motion, a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I
No, go
wanted
ahead.
to
You're first, Kevin.
thank Ray and staff or whoever that's been working on it. I know we brought it up maybe a year or so ago after COVID ended and all that stuff. And so thank you for all of that. And I think this is a very important group. You know, I was very actively involved in student government and things like that at a younger age as well. And I think to mold and help build our youth residents, to give them an idea of what's going on here, to get them involved in the community and community service and doing things for the citizens and the city is huge. So if there is anything that I can assist with as a council member that I can do, just let me know.
Yeah, their initial meeting is going to be on Thursday, the 25th, and what we intend to do is invite each one of you, whoever is interested in speaking with them, even for a few minutes. We'll let you know the schedule.
And then I just wanted to add that while I was at Florida League of Cities, they also had a entire youth council seminar for a full day workshop. I actually actually skipped part of my day to just go watch theirs. So I really just wanted to see if us as a council, or if we need a motion in or not, but I would love to try to get Florida League of Cities over here to do a youth council seminar, and we can invite the other high schools. I know Niceville's very active in the Florida League. I don't know about the other ones, but I think there's a way to, work with other facilitating bodies of government and bring them all to one and do a education day, because, they did a great job. Before and after, and hearing what the kids learned afterwards was really impressive at that level. So if we are here to mold and give them a good taste of what you can and can't do in government, I think it would be a great service to them to bring a professional statewide, rubric to the area and have everyone participate in that. So I don't know what that looks like for y'all.
And just before we take a vote, I just want to make sure that we all know those 11 names. James Ball, Anne Marie Carroll, Grace Fountain, Charlie Frankfurt, Elena Granier, Glana Jackson, Bianca Rodriguez, Macy Sexton, Parker Sexton, Alexis Ventimiglia.
Ventimiglia.
Thank you. And Annabelle Zelinsky. So those are the 11. Thank you all for volunteering, and hopefully we can help you learn more about our government. Thanks, Ray, for doing all the work.
Thank you, ma'am.
Teamwork.
Seeing no further comment, let's go ahead and take this to a vote. Ayes have it, so moved.
So is that something I can ask for a motion on, as far as having staff work with Florida League of Cities and coming back with an estimate of what that cost? Or can you just hand that off?
Now, we'll just use that as a, Bobby,
take
you
it.
can just wear Lance out on that, make sure he follows through.
Will do.
Go ahead, Lance.
Thanks, sir. A couple quick announcements. Derelict boats update. A shout out to Alex Fogg from Okaloosa County, who's been taking care of us with regards to those. And Webb, you want to give an update on the boat in the harbor?
I'll be happy to. There was an orange buoy put out there within about 48 hours of the last council meeting, as council did request on the boat that is outside of Harbor Docks over there. And then also Mr. Alex Fogg in the county did go out with a lighted buoy and put that on that boat. So today we got a message that we thought the buoy was stolen. As it turns out, it looks like that boat just sank a little bit and that buoy went underwater. So Alex Fogg and crew went back out there, recovered that buoy. And
My buoy is still there.
your buoy is still there. The orange one is still there. It's clearly visible, but the lighted buoy will assist at night. Again, we want to thank Okaloosa County, Alex Fogg, tremendous effort and a great partnership. And as it relates to the actual derelict boats process, we're going to be working with Alex on that. He is the point person for the county. He has the process down, and we just need to coordinate with him well from our side and get that communication going. So we're going to establish that relationship with our code compliance folks, our harbor officer, as well as administration, so we can keep this process moving. So that's all I have for tonight on derelict boats.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Webb. Reminder that early voting for the 2022 primary elections begins on August 13th at the community center. Our city facilities will be closed on September 5th, Labor Day. All facilities will be closed, which will push our next council meeting to Thursday, September the 8th. And I'm going to turn it over to Lisa so she can give us an update on our youth tackle football program, which is resurging again as we had hoped it would.
Yes, good evening. Yes, we're very happy to have our padded football back in action. We did have a few years that we brought in flag football because of the numbers for padded were not there. Flag football is still going strong, and our padded football this year is, well, we have Mr. Football here. The three teams, we have Pee Wee, Junior, and Senior, which the Destin Middle School is really working with our seniors to make that a good team to move into their program, which is really exciting. So we're very happy to have the three teams this year, and that is one team more than we had last year. So yay for padded football being back. And they have their jamboree this Saturday at Twin Oaks in Niceville.
So Lisa, on the other subject of the early voting, can, correct me if I'm wrong, August 13th to the 20th, I believe, is the timeframe when the early voting takes place, and that's from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.?
Yes, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. A lot of people are showing up at 7 a.m. thinking, the 7 to 7 on Tuesday, the regular vote, but right now it's 10 to 6 p.m. Until next Saturday.
Thank you, Lisa. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And,
Mayor, if I may add, sir?
Yes.
Primary election is on the 23rd, and this will be, one of the voting precincts will be in this building.
All right. So noted. Got that? We got, up next will be our public hearings, but prior to that, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We're actually not doing too bad. Had a lot of ground to cover tonight. So, we've been through this for a while. I got everybody here at the table.
Ready?
All right, I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Second reading of ordinance 22-09-CN. Kyle, would you take it away?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. First, we got item 5A. This is the second and maybe final reading of ordinance number 2209CN, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Destin, Florida, providing for the exclusive franchise to Waste Management, Inc. of Florida, a private corporation for the collection and disposal of all residential and commercial trash, garbage, and other refuse within the city limits, providing for the collection of residential recyclable materials within the city limits, providing for definitions, grant of franchise, limits of franchise term, franchise consideration, assignment, bankruptcy or insolvency, default, rate changes, rights of first refusal, restoration, compliance with laws, liability insurance, hold harmless, workers' compensation, performance bond, right to require performance, dispute resolution, operations during dispute, standard of performance, curbside recyclable materials collection and disposal, recycling program, collection services and operations, office and collection hours, collection equipment, disposal routes and schedules, grantee personnel, spillage and litter, storms and other emergencies, non-discrimination provisions, rates and charges, rate changes, delinquent accounts, accounting, right to audit, complaints, charges for failure of performance, venue, sovereign immunity, conflicting ordinances and resolutions, savings clause, and providing for an effective date. And this is a public hearing.
Thank you, sir. First up, we'll open up, seeing how it's a public hearing, I'm going to open up for public comment. And then after we get done with that, I'll entertain a motion. We'll have our discussion. So if anyone would like to come up, make comments about this ordinance 22-09-CN, come up at this time. Come up.
Marcy Bell. I actually wasn't going to come to the meeting tonight, but I wanted to call. I just wanted to come up and thank everyone for helping me with this ordinance. I think I'm going to hear some good news here in just a few minutes. So I just wanted to say thank you, 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 and thank you. And thank you. So with that being said, I look forward to that helping the new ordinance for the franchise agreement, helping us with all of our code compliance problems with garbage.
Ma'am, anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and entertain a motion at this time. Go ahead.
I move to adopt ordinance 2209CN on second reading.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a couple seconds. Rodney, you're up first, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. When can we expect the addresses to be available to put on the cans?
Might as well stay up here, Doug.
So we're still working through that. We asked for 90 days, but we don't think it'd take that long. October 1st is when this begins. We've started that process. We think maybe 3 weeks we can get it pushed out, but, you know, we don't think too long.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Just wanted to thank our legal staff and Waste Management for continuing to work hard on this. You listen to our citizens and us, and I'm happy where we have ended. So we're where we are at tonight. So thank you.
All right, let's take a vote. The vote is unanimous, so moved. Congratulations, sir. Go ahead.
Just want to thank you all for letting us work with you. We appreciate it, and thanks for the back and forth and give and take. But if I run out of here tonight, it's okay, right? Thank you.
Go before they change their mind. All right, Kyle.
Next, we have item 5B. This is the second reading of ordinance number 109.11, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, providing for amendment of ordinance 109 as amended, personnel rules and regulations, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for amendment to section 40 holidays, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And this is a public hearing.
Thank you, sir. And seeing how it's a public hearing, I'm going to entertain any comments from the public at this time. Going once, going twice. Going 3 times, no comments, so I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to move to approve ordinance 109.11 on second reading.
I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any comments from the council members? Seeing none? The vote is unanimous, so moved. Kyle.
Next, we have item 5C. This is ordinance number 2211CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida relating to the lease of certain real property owned by the city, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for City Council approval of the Second Amendment to reclaimed water lease for lease of property located at 4200 Indian Bayou Trail, Destin, Florida, to Destin Water Users, Inc., providing for an effective date, and this is a public hearing.
Thank you, sir. Seeing how it's a public hearing, I'll open up the public comment portion of this hearing. No comments from the audience. I'll entertain a motion at this time and close the public comment.
Mayor, I make that motion to move to approve ordinance 2211CN on second reading.
So moved. 11.
22-11-CN.
You're one ahead, we're not there yet. You can read that one.
Yeah, we'll let Mr. Destin do that, D. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any comments from the board? Seeing none? The vote is unanimous, so moved. Kyle.
Last, we have item 5D. This is the first reading of ordinance number 2212CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, approving the form and authorizing execution and delivery of an interlocal agreement between the city and Okaloosa County to facilitate the city's acquisition of certain beach property and the development or redevelopment of such property for public recreation and tourism purposes, and to establish the respective financial obligations of the city and county associated therewith, and providing an effective date. Mr. Mayor, this is also a public hearing, but we also have a presentation that Mr. Warren and Mr. Ponder, I believe, are going to present jointly. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And after that presentation, I'll open it up for public comment.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff is excited to bring you an update and a proposed interlocal agreement between Okaloosa County and the City of Destin for the city's and county's public beach initiative. I'd like to thank County Commissioner and Chairman Mel Ponder for being here, as well as Deputy County Administrator Craig Coffey, and also the Senior Project Manager from the Trust for Public Lands, Ms. Kate Brown. And thank you all for taking your time tonight from your busy schedule to be here. So, the need for public beach. As you are well aware, council, staff, and our local businesses all received lots of feedback from visitors and residents concerning the public's ability to visit and enjoy Destin's beaches. Some of the things we've heard, this is actually feedback directly to council. The tourists have no idea where to set up. We could barely find a place. The beach is blocked for us second-class visitors. In addition, we've seen a lot of articles concerning this, and some of those comments from those articles in the paper was a sliver of beach access, very small beach accesses and parks. We love Destin, but we won't be coming back if there's a fight for the beach. So as everyone knows, recently we have secured some properties adjacent to shore of Crystal Beach, and here are some pictures from just this year. As you can tell, it remains heavily used, even with the recent addition of footage along that park. Staff and visitors alike have been very excited for the expanded beach access. It certainly has helped, but space remains a challenge. Destin's adopted strategic plan for fiscal 2022 provides an important priority for public beach acquisition. It's in the top 3 council objectives. This initiative hits on 5 of the 6 strategic goals, which are listed on the slide. And this initiative remains an important priority for council's approved objectives for fiscal year 23. So a quick project review. If you recall, back in 2018, council unanimously voted to direct staff to look into several Crystal Beach properties for potential purchases. The original funding for this project would come from the city's portion of the half-cent sales tax funding. Trust for Public Lands secured purchase agreements with multiple property owners surrounding the shore of Crystal Beach Park, and then staff approached Okaloosa County and the TDC for potential funding opportunities. So as it relates to the shore of Crystal Beach Park, you can see kind of from a strategy standpoint, this project has been identified from the original locations for purchase, and as you can see on this map, you can see the Henderson Beach State Park on the west side of Crystal Beach. You see all the purple. That's short-term rentals in the Crystal Beach area. And you can see the yellow, which is the shore of Crystal Beach Park right there. And you can also see the James Lee Park on the far east over there. So the shore of Crystal Beach Park plays an important role in that area because of all the short-term rentals that go to that area. They don't have it's not really feasible for many of them to walk to James Lee Park, and you can't access Henderson Beach from Crystal Beach. You have to get on Highway 98 in order to do that. As you can see, again, Shore of Crystal Beach review in October of 2020, we executed an interlocal agreement to expand the Shore of Crystal Beach to 251 feet of waterfront access. This is just a visual, when we get to that point, what that will look like. This was done in a cost sharing from 59% from Okaloosa County as well as 41% from Destin's funding. So again, just a brief overview on the Shore of Crystal Beach. This park is planned for construction in 2023 and will provide open view corridors to the water, much needed beach space, as well as appropriate facilities for that park. That means expanded restrooms as well as parking. So briefly review, since the initial agreement was put into place, there's been some changes in some funding sources for the city. So if you recall, we mentioned earlier that the original funding came from half-cent sales tax. In late 2021, Okaloosa County and the TDC executed a new interlocal agreement with all 9 municipalities within Okaloosa County. This agreement outlined that the TDC would set aside 12.5% of its total revenue generated by the first 5 pennies of bed tax for use by the municipalities for a 20-year agreement. Destin receives about 48.5% of that 12.5% set aside. And again, most of the original funding for this project was originally identified from the half-cent sales tax. From that TDC funding, council did agree to shift those priorities from the half-cent sales tax revenue and set aside for projects such as undergrounding, for stormwater, and things like that, while the TDC funding could be used for beach acquisition. The city's portion of that sharing plan amounts to about $1.6 million a year. All expenditures from this revenue must demonstrate that a project improves tourist experience in our locality or increases tourism. Beach acquisition is specifically recognized by the statute as an authorized use. Prior to the municipal share revenue agreement, waterfront park maintenance funds came from an annual allotment from the county, and currently $258,000 of that annual allotment is tentatively budgeted by the county to continue to support our waterfront parks for 2023. Moving forward, it is intended that maintenance would come out of the municipal revenue sharing agreement from the county. So, with that said, a new opportunity has presented itself, and this one is called Tarpon Beach, and this has been in the works for a while, but it's about 340 foot of beach access. And as you can tell in Crystal Beach, it is actually centrally located between the parks we just discussed. At this location, we currently have limited parking, a beach trail with a boardwalk. It's a 5-foot wide boardwalk that leads down to the beach, but there is no dedicated park there. And we have some showers. There are no restrooms, and there is some limited parking in that area. So again, Tarpon Beach is about 340 feet. Trust for Public Land has a purchase agreement on this parcel. This purchase agreement is contingent upon council, city council, as well as county commissioner approval. In order for staff to bring that purchase agreement to council, the city must have an interlocal agreement in place because we need to establish the funding for that. These Tarpon Beach properties have smaller and older structures on them, and as compared to other areas of Crystal Beach. And this is about, again, 340 feet of beachfront footage, and also these parcels have one owner. Staff has worked with the Trust for Public Land in Okaloosa County to analyze this opportunity. We believe that construction, demolition, design, and ancillary costs would be about $2.7 million, as well as the purchase would be about $14 million. Kind of do a high-level strategy look at this again. You see the shore at Crystal Beach in the blue. The yellow now is the Tarpon Beach, and you can see again, looking at short-term rentals, the location of Crystal Beach, strategically it falls pretty well within the footprint of Crystal Beach. We believe that the property would provide a good strategic location for walking as well as low-speed vehicle traffic. This type of traffic also reduces parking woes at parks as well as traffic in the Crystal Beach area, but any park, we would also have regular vehicular parking. Waterfront footage of the City of Destin operated beach parks. As you can tell, as we started off in 2019, we had a very small sliver at Short Crystal Beach, that was 67 feet. We had a small sliver, remains a small sliver at June White Decker, which is not in the Crystal Beach area, but is actually just directly across from here. If you see the gold and the yellow, that is potential future footage that would be acquired if we were able to move forward with this interlocal agreement. Briefly, in this packet, we have the phase one, which is the Crystal Beach, Short Crystal Beach project funding. It outlines all the details of that. Again, this is a 59% county match in the interlocal and a 41 city split for the Short Crystal Beach. The next project, which is this Tarpon Beach one, would be a 50-50 split. And again, all the details are there for your review. So here's again a quick summary of the proposed interlocal agreement. Short Crystal Beach, 59% county, 41% city funded. Tarpon Beach opportunity would be a 50-50 split. Total cost of all projects would be about $32 million. Most of Destin's portion of funding would be advanced funding through the municipal TDC shared revenue plan. TDC in essence would help front some of the money for that. Again, the city portion would be 41% for one project and 50% for the second phase. This interlocal, if we're able to move forward with this, would provide almost 600 feet of beach parks operated by the City of Destin in the Crystal Beach area. That's a huge expansion from 67 feet that we were experiencing all kinds of problems just a few years ago and continue to experience some challenges, but this should give us capacity that's desperately needed to uphold the Destin brand. And this initiative would mostly encumber the municipal share revenue for the next 10 years out of a 20-year agreement. I do want to make sure everybody understands that. We do have some maintenance funds that would also come out of that revenue stream. But this would be $1 million a year approximately out of the revenue stream to pay for these parks. So in summary, staff wants to thank everybody for the opportunity to present this information. Okaloosa County and city staff believe that this is a tremendous opportunity for both organizations and all the citizens of Okaloosa County. This would ensure that waterfront access is preserved and secured for future generations. I want to thank Deputy County Administrator Craig. He has worked hard on this for a long time with us, and we really appreciate the efforts and the wonderful relationship that Okaloosa County and Destin have, as well as Chairman Ponder. He's been just a tremendous partner for years, all the way dating back to when he was mayor and council member here within these very chambers. So if approved, this project would be generational for our visitors and locals for years to come. And I want to thank everybody again. And Mel, do you have any specific?
Yeah, Mel, could you just give us some of your thoughts before we get into the public hearing portion of it?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you too, Webb, for the presentation.
Absolutely. Yeah, Mayor, again, I can't thank Webb and your staff. They've done a phenomenal job and working with our staff and Craig. And the time they've dedicated to bring this partnership together has been really, from my perspective, just one that I celebrate, because I've often said that when you can focus on those things that unite you as opposed to divide you, you just get more things done. And there's really such a power in partnership that had we worked independent versus together, I don't think we'd be here today. And so for me, I kind of look at it as, I kind of often say our moment in history is recorded by what you do with what's been given to you. And for us today, as we sit here, we have a moment of opportunity in history that we can take advantage of a power of this partnership coming together. To me, I kind of say it's either, there's opportunity cost, some of which was brought up earlier about maybe some ball fields and things of that nature. That can be something that's easily looked at, perhaps. But for me, I look at it as the opportunity lost, that I don't think we will have in the near future a stretch of land that this is one owner, this contiguous altogether, that we can come together with a funding source that's in place that doesn't come from your ad valorem or general revenue. It's funded through TDC, which is a proper use of those funds to acquire more opportunity for locals and tourists alike to be able to enjoy that beach. And they're not, and God, last time I checked, is not making more of it at the moment. And so I think for us, it's a great opportunity here. And sports tourism is a big deal. I'm not minimizing that. Lance, back from your vision, Lisa, what y'all have done with sports tourism here is spectacular. Could it be better? Probably. But there's some ideas there that I know other communities are talking about, that another partnership opportunity I think Destin has even is along those lines. And I'd love to have that discussion when the time is right. But tonight's about this partnership of beach access and beach acquisition. And so, Mayor, again, to your staff's perspective, to the county staff's perspective, I love to see it work together like this, especially living here as well. I would love nothing more to see the city and the county partner together. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mel Ponder. Chairman Ponder, don't go nowhere. We're going to have the public hearing portion of it, and then once I entertain the motion, I know there's going to be questions and comments and that you'll like to weigh in on, or the council would like to ask from the county's perspective. So you guys hang tight. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public comment portion of this hearing. So anyone that would like to come up and make a comment, I'll start over here, this side of the room. Is anybody here that want to speak on this? Come on up.
What I don't quite understand is...
Name and address again.
I'm Bob Schmidt, 833 Keller. What I don't quite understand is why would we want to spend the Destin part of it, $16 million or $14 million? I was trying to do the 41% and the 50% in my head. When we not guaranteed, and I know we don't have a crystal ball, Mel, but how are we going to spend this type of money and then have the same thing happening with this beach access as we're currently experiencing with other beach access? You made some you got some emails of what people are saying. There's no guarantee that's not going to happen again. Yeah, it's a bigger space, but it's not that big. As I pointed out at the beginning of the meeting, we have ballparks that are an embarrassment, a total embarrassment. When I go to other cities in this region and see their ballparks, and they're not near as wealthy as Destin. And we're, like I said earlier, 30 years behind. I'd rather see that we start looking at the infrastructure of this community to an outreach to our future generation. Kids coming up. Destin is growing. We've got people using these ballparks from all over today, and just think what kind of a witness we would be if we had the state-of-the-art ballparks and sporting facilities. I love beaches, but I also love our children, and I love the community that I came to here in the early 80s. And I look around at the parks and recreation part of this community, and I see it going down. And we're spending money on beach access for other people to use. So I just ask you guys to reconsider where our money's really going for the best interest of this community. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? Come on up.
Marcy Bell, 3 Gulf Breeze Court. I can't argue with anything that the gentleman before me said, but I support this. I support it a lot. I don't just not support what he's had to say. Our children are important. But yes, let's move forward, and I am excited that maybe we would even have a path that would connect them at some point. I always like to think of the beaches in California where they have concrete and you can do all that kind of stuff, or even down in Miami. I don't know if our beaches are deep enough for that, but while you're planning, that would be a great idea. So I support it, and I support this gentleman also, but 2 different issues, and hopefully we can help him as well. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Come on up.
Shane Moody, President and CEO of the Destin Chamber. The number one complaint we get, believe it or not, more from residents than tourists, is we can't get on the beach. We need more beach. Here you got a situation where somebody's going to help you buy it. They're going to help you maintain it. They're going to give it to you. It is a great partnership and something that I don't think that you can turn down. I think you've got to move forward with it. Again, the emails that come in, the phone calls that come in, the path is only 50 feet wide, and they won't let us get out of that, which leads us into another issue we face with the beach vendors, but that's not what's on the agenda tonight. So I encourage you to take it, we've had the conversations, man. Take advantage of somebody coming forward, helping you with this, and go get this done. You think about the overall impact, it's really not just about the beaches, but how much money is going to be spent in stores and restaurants with people on their way there buying food and beverage to sit on the beach all day. The tax dollars that the city generates and the tax dollars that the county generates because those things. This is big picture thinking. This is not, I've stood before you all and said, we're a small city of 13,000 people with 100,000 population problems, and we have to think about our issues and address them that way. Chairman Ponder will tell you, I'm one of the biggest sports tourism guys that's around here. From his time on the TDC when I was there, Council Member Abear, you've heard me talk about it over and over and over again. As a dad who spends thousands of dollars a year chasing his kids around to basketball tournaments all day, and basketball's cheap. It's not baseball, it's not soccer, it's not these other things that go on. You know, our fields are hosting tournaments now. Are they in the greatest shape? Probably not. But every time I pass on the weekend, Lance can tell you, we started this back in 05 or 06 through the chamber to get the word out about Destin being a tourism destination for sports. It's there, it's happening. Improvements needed? Absolutely, I think so. Beach access and beach availability is the #1 complaint we get. And if you look at it big picture, it's good for the entire community because the residents can use it just like the tourists can. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. I'm going to close the public comment portion of it and entertain a motion at this time.
I move to approve ordinance 22-12-CN on first reading and direct staff to advertise for second reading.
I have a motion, I have a second. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. I want to start by saying that Webb and staff, y'all have worked hard, and thank you for doing that and doing some of those things. I ultimately have a lot of issues with this plan. I don't have issues with trying to get beach, but I have issues with how we're going to get to the beach. Just taking the presentation tonight, it's, interesting that the very end of the presentation, comments were made about who it benefits, but the entire presentation was highlighting the short-term rentals in Crystal Beach, the purple dots. And we're talking about the short-term rentals that people will be able to go to that beach. So, we had another slide that talked about not finding beaches or whatever, but that was in 2018. I'm not saying the problem isn't still there. We had the mobility impact fee presentation tonight that talked about where do you go? And the #1 answer out of obviously not a lot of people was to the beach and the water access is already. So somebody responded to that survey that they're going there. So people are going there. Again, I know we need some beaches. I get that. My issue is how we're going to get it. I also have an issue with we're being presented tonight, the first reading, and then the second reading would be next meeting, and then following at the same meeting, we're going to be talking about buying it. I personally feel like we should have had more notice and opportunity to discuss something of this magnitude. This is not just a quick decision. I mean, it's going to be a quick decision. It has to be. Shouldn't be, though, in my opinion. And I do appreciate the partnerships of the county, but we're getting a loan, The partnership is they're our bank, and they're loaning us money. And what I don't like about that is they're loaning us the TDD, TDC allocation money that is ours, and there's state regulations and stipulations of what they can be used for. And I'm not going to talk about a baseball field or what exactly we can use those funds for. What I'm going to talk about is what we won't be able to use the funds for the next 10 years, because they're going to be gone. And the maintenance of the park is going to be the city's responsibility, not the county's, from my understanding. There has been recent changes, I think, over the past month or so in the actual ordinance and the plan. From my understanding, I don't like how the changes have been made about the interest on the loan and different things like that. There is interest based upon the loan. It's a free loan, but there will be potentially some type of interest payment if something ever happens. So I just don't appreciate how it's been done. Parker Destin said earlier about we can do both, and I'm not disagreeing with that. We can do both, but I don't think we should be looking at tying up these funds, buying real estate, beach property in the height of the market that we're in right now. I'm not saying we don't buy beach property, but doing it with this mechanism, it's not the way that I feel like we should be going to do it. There's other areas that I think we could look at. We have highlighted the eastern side of Henderson State Beach Park. I know a lot of people have talked a long time about trying to get Henderson State Park to be opened up on the east side, figuring out ways to make it more accessible to people. Not saying we haven't tried that, but if we put our same time and energy into some of these other options, there's options there to do that. But ultimately, I've probably spent 2 months talking to different constituents and people in the city and the county, and I have probably not found one person that is all in favor of doing this deal the way it's laid out that I've talked to. And I haven't been just trying to find certain people. I've been asking anybody I can ask about it. Because I don't think this is the best use of the TDC allocation funds for the tourists and our residents. Because yes, I get TDC allocation is all about a tourism-based thing, but it still can benefit our residents, which at the end of the day, for me, is my number one customer, is the city of Destin residents. And so what we could use it for, I'm not talking about that tonight, but I don't want to lose the ability to be able to use it for something else besides what's being presented tonight. So I cannot support this particular ordinance and the way it's being done. And that's my thoughts for now.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to see, I don't know if we can, but Henderson Beach does have a lot of property. If we couldn't access more of that, or they would open more of that up to the public. I know that people are lined up getting in there. It's packed on a good weekend. If we can use a lot more of their property. When I too reached out to the citizens destined to get their concerns on it. One was when we purchased the first property, or the two houses, 3 houses, or 2 houses, and going to be 3. It seemed like the Little Adventures took it over. They put their building there. They put their signage up last year, Little Adventure parking only. And that was supposed to be, I guess, a agreement, or, that was supposed to be Destin's park, or more land we could go to the beach on. And I don't like that it's a piece of property we haven't even purchased yet. It's already in this agreement. And I've been asked too, why did the TDC fund 59% before, now there is down to 50/50. And it just seems like the last piece that was purchased, the Little Adventures, jumped in there, but when Destin wants to, talks about putting paid parking on these piece of property that was purchased, the county balked at it, and that sounds like that's never gonna happen. So when we buy this other piece of property for $16 million, I mean, is the county or the TDD gonna take that over too and do what they want to it with it, as far as another Little Adventures or something? And they're gonna, tell Destin what we can do and can't do with it, but Destin, we have no say-so in what goes on with this, like the Little Adventures. I didn't have any say-so, whether they could put the building down there and use the parking. So why does the county get to have, do what they want to with it? So these are all questions that, I've been asked, and I just wanted to bring it up to the county and to the council. And in this agreement, it's, the TDD is gonna, they're not gonna be paying $450,000 annually that they've been paying, I guess for the beach, I don't know, for waterfront park maintenance, and then another $258,000 for park maintenance funding, that's not gonna be available anymore. So that's a little over $700,000 a year that we're gonna come up with somewhere. So where's Destin coming up with that money? It just doesn't seem that the TDD would buy some property and then not help keep it cleaned. We want to get tourists here and have them a place to go to the beach, but we're not gonna keep it cleaned, or we're gonna cut all that money. So where's that money gonna come from? I don't know. It's just going to be hard for me to support it tonight with so many questions that our citizens have brought forward, until we can look into it a little more and get a few more answers. That's all I have, Mayor.
Mel, would you like to answer some of those questions, or Craig? Or Webb? I'm next.
I've tried to write down some of the questions, so if you might need to prompt me on a few of those as we go along. But let me first start by saying we could talk about buying the property and why we're buying the property. What I tell my board is basically this is a joint investment. This is our number one priority. This is our tourism economic engine. This is going to benefit residents and tourists alike. When you talk about the advancement, and I think you talked about the advancement a little bit, right? That's just another way to help Destin. Some of the maintenance dollars we're phasing out, but that was a way, instead of you having to go out and borrow money. And if you recall, the tourism money that we're now bringing to the table is replacing what was your local option sales tax, and that freed up essentially $9 million of local option sales tax that now you can spend on a lot more city stuff that you couldn't from before. The reason the percentages changed between the two projects is very simple. When we entered into this and we started down this road, Destin got $0 from us per year, guaranteed. Now you're getting 1.5 million or 30 million plus over 20 years, so we changed the percentages slightly. Very little. Little Adventures, you mentioned that a number of times, and again, we're trying to promote Destin. We don't have to have Little Adventures here. We could pick it up and move it, but again, Destin's the heart of it. I think it's very popular. The parking spaces that are set aside, the general public cannot use because they're very, we haven't redeveloped the lots yet. Once we redevelop the lots, it might be a little bit different, but there's going to be a lot more parking. But right now, the general public can't even use those spots if you talk to your staff. Changes on the interest rate, why was interest put in there at all? We didn't have any interest in there. It's a zero interest loan. It comes up in the event of a hurricane and we have to invest the money. We have to go out and borrow money. The county has to go out and borrow money to put sand on the beaches after a hurricane. Then you only pay the interest that we pay for the portion that's outstanding. And that was recommended unanimously by the TDC board. It's just a safety valve. And we put a safety valve in our interlocal agreement between the parties here, that if we get hit by a hurricane, there's less revenues. If you recall, there was a safety valve in that thing too. And it's just, we live in a hurricane area and bad stuff can happen. So I didn't think it was it was a friendly amendment, I guess is what I want to say, by the TDC board.
Why is there nothing in here that says how the hands of the city of Destin is tied? They can't do certain things and the county can and
Great.
can't do?
Okay, let me bring that up too. So in our first agreement, going back to 2020, it specifically, we wanted to prohibit paid parking. We wanted to prohibit vendors on the beach because we wanted this really to be unencumbered territory where either a visitor or resident alike doesn't have to pay for chair setups. If you go in Okaloosa Island, you got chair setups blocking the beach. It's very hostile, very aggressive. Everyone gets hit with fees. We didn't want that environment. We could still do that, but both parties have to agree, and then the money has to be spent back in the park. Destin, this is under full Destin control for all their purposes. And I've offered to your staff, if you want to buy the parks and have them go to the county, and the county own both parks and maintain both parks, we're okay with that. But it was our understanding you wanted to own the parks and control and maintain the parks. The only thing you're prohibited against is having vendors there charging for umbrellas and all that stuff and paid parking. But everything else is City of Destin rules, closures. You control weddings, beach permits, parties, whatever else you do on the beach. It's all Destin control. But if you don't want that, we can flip that and switch that. We'd be happy to work, and we'd work on it just like we do James Lee. It'd be just another county park. But we thought it worked well in your system and what you've got going on. And they're adjacent to your other county or city parks there, either a little strip or a Crystal Beach.
Do you have any idea what is budgeted for the Little Adventures next year out of the TDD?
No, sir, I don't.
Can I add something in there that I don't think, when you say Little Adventures, you make it sound like it's a dirty name. This is a group of local fishermen, paddleboarders, restaurants that pair up and do hook and cooks and do pin fishing and do paddleboard training. And a lot of it's free, and a lot of it is, say it's $600 for you to take your 4 kids out fishing. The TDC pays $300, and that family booking through the Little Adventures, whether you live here and book it or you're a visitor and you book it, you only pay 50%.
Right.
So this Little Adventures is, they get people that are on the beach all week. They walk up, there's kids that are scouts, what they call them. They walk up and they say, hey, how long you been here? And they're like, oh, 3 days, what you done? Oh, we've hung out here on the beach. Oh, did you know about this, this, and this? That's why they've tried to put the QR codes at the commons and tried to put them in like the crosswalks and stuff. So when people see it, they scan it, it opens it up, and it tells them, hey, you're literally right down the road from where they're doing some free pin fishing and right where they're doing the paddleboarding. And those Little Adventure kiosks are set up for like 20 kids to be able to learn how to paddleboard, or they've got like buckets and stuff. So there's so much for locals with kids from the age of 3 to 17 or visitors. And we've tried, last year it was just a pilot program and it blew out at the seams. And we had 70 more local businesses say, we want to be part of this. We want to pair up and we want to help the TDC bring more people to our business. And it was an awesome joint venture. So you really got to go to DestinFWB.com and it opens it up right away. And you click on Little Adventures and you click on the age group. Kevin's got kids. He could be taking them kids out for half price every weekend to do something different. It also says, don't forget about, we have a penguin party.
I can't park down there. There's no parking or anything.
No, there's no
I live down
parking.
Main Street. So.
But then they also have things that like golfarium, penguin parties, it's a lot of stuff for kids and families to do. And it's just trying to get things for the tourists as well as the locals. And it's, like I said, it's an opportunity that we just have not really delved into as locals because we don't really know about it, because we don't come through the Mid-Bay Bridge and they hand you a flyer. Hey, while you're here, click on this site. They pay your toll and they're visiting and then they start to see it. So it's a really good thing, and there's only a couple of them. They're not like set up everywhere.
I didn't think I said that it was a bad thing or. I know you're passionate about it, and it's your thing, but I didn't say it was a bad thing, and I'm sure it's a good thing. I'm just wondering why we purchased a piece of land on the beach, and next thing you know, it's like it was all planned, little adventure set up on it, and took it over.
They're set up in Fort Walton and James Lee Park too, Rodney. It's not just one place.
Yeah, I get that. I asked that, and they said they were in Fort Walton too. I was just asking that, that happened. So what's going to happen with the next piece of property we buy? Is there going to be another thing going to pop up and take that piece over? Or, and I guess I was more upset that we didn't have any say-so in that whatsoever. It just happened overnight. So that's all I got.
The best thing I can leave you with is this is something that's going to last a long, long time. And what you're getting, investment in your community, you're doubling your dollars. You're doubling your tourism dollars. Because those dollars, we could build more stuff on Okaloosa Island or Fort Walton Beach in the southern area, but we're reinvesting it in the heart of tourism. And we're trying to invest it in your number one priority. We think it's our number one priority, and we definitely have a need, for sure. If you look at those units, and if you talk to your residents about getting on the beach, they can go to Henderson, but outside of Henderson, there's not a lot of opportunities for a public beach area for them.
Thank you, Craig. Mel, would you like to add to that before I make my comments? You're good. All right, my turn. And I take some of the ownership on this because this is something that after spending time on the TDC council, when Jennifer Adams became our executive director, one of the first things she said is that we have issues with the Destin brand. She didn't talk about Fort Walton Beach. And the issue with the Destin brand was we were getting a lot of negative publicity on social media about this issue. And from that kind of stemmed as, because I'm a practical kind of guy, it's like, well, why don't we just buy more beach? Because the Hendersons divvied that stuff up or before the Hendersons, I think back in 1932 or something. Every single portion along the Gulf of Mexico in Okaloosa County was already private property. And it developed that way through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. We didn't have public access. And so this is to undo maybe some bad planning in the future. I'm just thankful that the state bought that mile of beach that they bought, because where would we be without the state park? But it took somebody in the initiative in the state to preserve that place. And the seller, the Hendersons, sold it to them. And then the same thing with James Lee Park. That wouldn't exist if the county had taken upon themselves to maintain that piece of property under their ownership. So we're kind of late to the party. So our only alternative was to buy public or private property to turn it into public beach. And this is one of these legacy type events. It's something that the previous council, who supported this by 100% voted to do the first project, it's been a high priority on every visioning session since 2019. It was on our 20 vision, our 21, and it's on our 22. So we're putting this interlocal agreement is following the high priorities that is established by two different councils, and I hopefully will continue. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and once-in-a-lifetime vision to do something this big and monumental in a city of our size. Like I said, we got $30 million plus of bay parks already. Some of that we got through federal grants and funding and stuff, but we got them. And this is an opportunity using tourist tax dollars, not destined tax dollars, to partner up with the county and buy this piece of property. I kind of like and live by the thing that you always finish what you started. We started this project, and the council before started this project with this in mind, knowing that we get this beach, it's ours forever. For the next council and the council after that, and every visitor that comes 20, 30, 40 years from now. It's expensive because we're buying private property to provide public beach access, but I think every damn dime is well worth the cost. And like I said, tourism itself that this helps ensure is actually what's going to pay for it. So I sure hope there's enough votes on this council to approve this local agreement, to finish what we've started. And as Mr. Destin, Parker Destin spoke of earlier, you can chew gum and do other things at the same time. And I just think we supported this from the very beginning. I support it even more so now. Land is, Mel said it best, the good Lord's not making any more land. And in spite of the economic outlook in our country right now, I just was on a podcast, and one of the things that people said is keep buying land because it's never going to lose value. It may go up or down 6 months, 2, 3 years, but it always comes back. That property will always be a valuable asset to the city of Destin for as long as it exists. Next up, Mr. King.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I got to be honest. I was a little bit on the fence about this coming in tonight, and just for the same reasons that Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Braden were, and I think kind of digging into it and looking into. I'm not calling a bunch of people, but everybody I've run into, I talk to about this, and most of them are guys like me who don't really like going to the beach. No offense to anybody who does. I just don't like the sand and where all it goes, you know? So while it's not my thing, I think to Mr. Moody's point, it's kind of like where I go with it and where my brain has to on an economic development. Well, on a long-term perspective, I think that this is an opportunity that we have that we may never get again. We might. It increases everything around it, all the property values. I think as far as a long-term play, you know, we would be spending the money to do this, but I think it comes back to us tenfold. I do have a couple of questions. I haven't done a whole lot with the Trust for Public Lands. I've been around it some, but how does I guess one of the questions I have is what does the Trust for Public Lands contribute, or what do they bring to the table, and how does that work exactly? That's one question I have.
Good evening. Kate Brown from Trust for Public Land. Nice to meet you. So the easiest way to describe it is we act as an interim buyer of land for parks and conservation lands. So Captain Leonard Dustin was a little bit different. We bought that and we developed it and we donated it to the city because we had funding to do all that. But our typical role is the one that I've been playing for the Shores at Crystal Beach parcels and also for this Tarpon parcel, which is to go in, make a deal with the owner to tie up the property with a contract, and then working with my partners, in this case you all, to bring it to a closing where we buy it and then we transfer it to you. So it's kind of back to back. We've done a couple of these already. We kind of have a process in place for doing it, but we're just a temporary owner and buyer of land in this situation, and then we don't want to keep it. We want a public entity to own it and develop it. So
Is that
yeah.
typically how it goes in y'all's organization?
Yes. Yeah. So we don't own or manage anything long term. We're really more like the real estate and parks experts, and we try to come in and help facilitate acquisitions of land or building a park or whatever it is. So.
Thank
Does that
you.
help? Okay.
Yeah. And I guess another question I have is, and this may be just an absolutely ridiculous question, so you can laugh at me, I give permission. What is the benefit to, I was wondering the same thing, Mr. Braden, about the 5941, so thank you for the explanation, Mr. Coffey. What is the benefit to the city owning half of it and the county owning half of it if the county's already going to buy it anyways? Do you know what I mean?
Just to clarify, Johnny, the county won't be owning half of it, just the city will be owning it. But, and Craig, I don't know if you had anything to add to that, or Webb. The county's just funding half of it, so they're just matching the dollars.
Sure. I mean, obviously, if the city owns it, there is additional liability and there's additional maintenance for us, but it also allows us to ensure that those parks are upheld to the standard that this council and our standards as a city are. The county does a great job with their parks, but it gives us the flexibility and the opportunity to ensure that the Destin brand is maintained according to the standards that we uphold.
And I think you stated the county was going to buy it anyways, and that's probably not accurate statement. The county was not going to buy it
I think that
anyways.
was maybe a miscommunication.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
apologize.
just to clarify, when we went down this road, actually, we had a commissioner on our end kind of pushing it, and then your council was kind of saying, this is what we want to do. And so we let the city take the lead with the Land for Public Trust, and we kind of became the behind-the-scenes baker, and how do we finance this and work together to make this work. And we had some commissioners say, hey, county, we're paying 50% or 59%, we should own it. No. We should let the city, this is their initiative, that's their park, they maintain its standard, but we're we're very flexible. We've tried to be flexible all along and support you guys.
I know I'm not crazy by saying that. Someone said that. I think y'all were saying whether y'all own it or we own it.
Oh,
that's where I assumed.
We're obviously there's different splits in the project, but if you wanted us to own it because you didn't like the way you were restricted by the county or something like that, but there are very few restrictions, I think, in the.
I'm not trying to make waves here.
Okay.
Awesome. Cool. Appreciate you guys coming. So one of my biggest things, and it's really kind of going back to that excellent service quality that we want to keep and maintain, really just from a safety standpoint, not only just from, janitorial duties, but also lifeguard duties. Right now, the county has raised their pricing on lifeguards, and Destin has had to follow suit to increase their wages to keep everything competitive. There's not any additional tax dollars going to them. So that's the conversation we have to have outside this public hearing, is what are we going to cut to keep to maintain the level of safety of our lifeguards? So with that, that's something I wanted to ask you guys, just a conversation.
Yeah, we've offered, we actually have given them additional funding. This year we added additional funding to Henderson Beach State Park. Mm-hmm. And I understand that someone asked, are you going to put a lifeguard at this location? Well, they're covering sections of beach already, so it may be a relocation or stuff, working with Chief Sasser.
Yeah.
But we've asked for detail of that, but I think both of us are going to run into competitiveness as far as trying to keep lifeguards.
Of course.
And we've proposed a uniform rate of pay between the organizations, so that we don't wind up stealing from each other. Right. And so that because we're not only competing with our two entities.
But South Walton.
Yeah, the outside
and
so Santa Rosa Beach.
My numbers with Chief Sasser this morning are.
Bobby, if you don't, I'm going to interject here.
All right, then I'll put it back in the parking.
Please.
Yep, focus in.
Let's stay focused on buying this piece of property
Okay, so
or
the next
passing
one,
this ordinance. Thanks.
I got it. My last concern is the parking fee. I definitely would want to see a parking fee in there to go back to what I heard from you guys, to go back into the park. So as long as the parking fee can go back into the park, is that agreeable with you guys?
I can't speak for my board.
Okay.
I know that we do not have parking fees on any of our parks, so you're venturing into new territory. The interlocal agreement does provide that if both parties agree, and then it also spells out that the money has to be basically reinvested back in the park.
Is that something we would know in the second reading of this?
I mean, it would have to be something the county is agreeable to. It does just leave the door, so even if the interlocal, the ordinance is passed on second reading, the interlocal leaves the door open that if, let's say the city just doesn't have enough money to operate its parks for whatever reason, they could go to the county, the parties could agree, okay, we really need some extra cash. County, can we agree to institute a parking fee? If the county agrees, then a parking fee can be put into place,
and that's kind of my
it would
concern
go
is
to the maintenance of that
That's
park.
my concern is we're now in debt, Proverbs 22:7. No, the borrower is slave to the lender. And with that, I would be afraid of, we're now having to go to our borrower to ask for something that we need. And so that was my concern, is this being a generational thing, it's also a generational expense that I would love to see a way to pay for itself in that yearly expense. So that's my concern is that.
So I think it's something that, each board is different, just as each city council is different. So I think that's something that can be discussed, but I think you open a broader issue there. And the broader issue is, I'm a resident in Crestview. I'm a resident in Fort Walton Beach. Now I got to pay a fee over in Destin to maintain the park. And again, we're willing to, if the maintenance burden's too great, we again can develop it jointly with you to have input all the way, just like we're having input, and we can maintain the parks if it's too big a burden.
And I have no problem waiving that fee for locals of the community, because this is a community park, and I recognize that.
It's just a lot of working through those kind of details.
Absolutely, and we got our trash guys to get stickers on the bins, and,
There
if
you
we
go.
need to get a sticker for the county, I'm sure we can get a sticker for the county.
Sure.
Yeah, all right, but that's my concerns
Yeah.
was just how we're going to pay for this year over year with the expenses that were going to occur as a city park. Thank you.
Tourist dollars. Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. We say this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. It's a once-in-10,000 years opportunity. If we do not buy this property now, we will never, ever have the opportunity again. And some of the questions I'm hearing tonight, the county is putting in over 50% of the money, period. There is no interest on the loan. They are loaning the rest of the money to us from their beach renourishment fund, and the only thing they put in there was if there's a hurricane that washes the beach away, and we have to go borrow the money to put back in the beach renourishment fund, then you guys help us with the interest. A completely reasonable request. So there is no interest on the loan. It's an interest-free loan. The Little Adventures, they came and gave us a presentation on that. If we had a problem with it at that time, we could have said, we don't want you to do that in this park, and they'd have done it in the other parks throughout the county. Would have been a really boneheaded, irrational thing to tell them, and thank God we didn't tell them anything like that. So that, as I listened to the reasons and the problems that we are coming up with tonight, I'm kind of baffled by them. We've been on this journey to buy these properties now for 7 years, 6 years, and the council has been 100% behind it. As to whether this will impact our ability to build ball fields or do sports-related tourism, that's a false flag, as we like to say. It has nothing to do with this. We can still do that, and I'm pledging my support to doing that right now, as I have in the past. So let's not get issues tangled up that would prevent us from going forward with this, golden opportunity we'll never see again. If it hadn't been that the county and the Trust for Public Lands and we were able to come together, this would never happen. And I'll give you one example of an opportunity we had 30 years ago that we didn't do, and that we have regretted ever since, and that we didn't do it because we didn't have the money. Henderson Beach was offered to the city of Destin, and we didn't have the money. There was no way we could do it. We have the money thanks to our cooperation with the county and the trust this time. Don't let us not throw an opportunity that we will regret the rest of our lives away tonight by not approving this interlocal.
Thank you, Mr. Destin. Mr. Schmidt, round two.
Thank you. This will be, I promise. And I'll first say that no matter what happens tonight, second reading, we're going to have two possible good options, in my opinion. We'll either end up with beach, or we'll end up with not giving away taking on a loan to use it for something else. So either option, I'm, ultimately sure there's going to be beach there. We talked about the strategic. Mr. Coffey talked about all of our strategic plan or goal is the number one thing, and I disagree with that. It's not. Maybe in 2018, 2019, when Mr. Mayor, you started this project, and I commend you for doing that. We've gotten through phase one, which we haven't gotten through phase one because of the issues we're having. That was the top priority. This particular item has actually been bumped down on the objectives list. It's actually been bumped down on the objectives list. So
I'm going
I just wanna let you
to
know.
refute that statement on the
No,
public
it's
record because it
true.
wasn't bumped down. It was already underway, and so
It's bumped down on the objective list for the council. So I understand
not.
what people are saying, but, Mr. Destin, I disagree with you about once in 1,000 years. We've done 2 in 2 years. So, what's to say a year and a half from now there won't be another opportunity? That statistic doesn't work for me because this is our second one. And again, it's not the best way to tie up these funds by taking a loan on with this particular situation. And again, it seems to me, I don't appreciate how we got here tonight. I don't appreciate that our proposed budget is already planning on this, that the staff works very hard on. I get that. I would have rather see a proposed budget without something that we haven't even talked about yet. We've never even talked about this, but for 2 months it's been on our proposed budget. It's interesting. I mean, I just don't get, if the staff was that excited about putting on a $10 million loan with the TDC funds, why don't we talk about that 2 months ago, 3 months ago? It's frustrating to me. It's frustrating to the constituents I've talked to. So, and again, if we looked at our council objectives with the same tenacity and excitement that we've looked at this one, it'd be pretty interesting and amazing to see some of the other things that we could be doing around here. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to say basically what Dewey confirmed, that Ms. Adams came here and said, hey, we got these little adventures, here's the story, here's where we're going to put them, what do you think? And council said, yep, great, do it, put it here. So that, I wanted that on the record, that she did come get our permission. And then I also want just to be said that we need beach access, and we need to take it when we can get it, and we've got a partnership that's phenomenal, and we have a group of people that are helping us accomplish this. So I'm voting yes tonight.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Bagby.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I only see about 2 people in here, 3 people that live south of 98. And I say, Johnny, I don't like going to the beach either. I go 2 times a year, Mother's Day and my anniversary weekend, because my wife likes going. And I do that because I love her, not because I like going to the beach. And I voted against the TDC agreement. I think I was the only one up here that voted against that because I understand the statute and I understand the funding scheme and I understand probably too much, having run a TDC, having been this council's representative for a couple of years, not this council's, a previous council's representative to the Okaloosa TDC. I do have one question. Craig, how much money is in the beach nourishment reserve?
I want to say about 15.6 million, and then we have a separate funding for dredging too, so that's not included in that reserve. About 2.5, which probably costs us 5 million today.
But each decision we make has impact on other decisions that we can make. And when we signed up for this, and I'm on the team. You know, the team signed up for it. I'm 100% for it. This is what happens. And so we have a great partnership here. You know, I want to say a couple of things. Public beach, just look to our neighbors to the east. They've already spent $3 million on attorneys trying to do, you know, to say the public owns all the beach, when the public doesn't own all the beach, and the public has never owned all the beach. You know, but they're going to push that customary use, and they're going to lose. They'll win. They might win some segments of that beach, but not 26 miles. Anything we can do to get public beach. Look at Henderson Beach State Park during the summer, where one lane of 98 headed east is blocked off because heck, they get more traffic in there than Chick-fil-A, and I thought that was impossible. I'm just, you know, they need a longer turn lane. Maybe we can get the county or the state to pay for that. But and the reason we need public beach, and I'm not saying we don't need sports parks and things like that is because our tax base depends upon it. Our tax base is based on those beachfront properties. When those beachfront properties sell for 10, 12, 15, 20 million dollars, it's a cascading effect because the closer you are to the beach, the more expensive that property is. You know, and if it keeps, and there's no, yeah, they're not homesteaded, there's no more beach being made, and all those houses in Crystal Beach that are those short-term rentals that are selling for $2, $3, $4 million that aren't on the beachfront, they want their access to the beach. Now, I also know we have public beach down there, and I was a little sad, and I talked to Craig, and I've talked to Webb and to Lance, and they're either in the process of surveying it, or they're going to survey it every year, because there is an erosion control line from Henderson Beach State Park to the Walton County line, and every mile of that, both miles, 2.7, whatever it is public beach. Now, it may only be 30 feet deep, may be 60 feet deep, but we're going to find that out, and we're going to find that out pretty soon. And we need to advertise that PIO because people don't think that it's public beach. They think it's only where the little walkover goes and all these private property owners on each side. No, that is public beach from Walton County to Henderson Beach State Park, and we need to identify that. But this is where we can put bathrooms. This is where we can put services. This is where we can put parking, okay? Both of these parcels. And that tax revenue is what's going to pay for the sports parks. That tax revenue is what's going to pay for everything else. You know, and I'm going to ask the city manager to see if he can get with the property appraiser or the tax collector and find out how much those properties south of 98, what percentage of our tax base they generate. Because I think it's well over 50%, and it's not well over 50% of the land. And there's a lot of waterfront properties. I see a lot of waterfront property owners in here, okay? But it's not like they're Gulfront property owners. I just point that out. We need to have money for beach nourishment, and I understand the loan provision, and I understand if we have to do that, because, and I understand the argument that somebody made to me, we are one storm away from affordable beach. Why the heck are you going to spend $16 million? You just wait for a storm to come, wipe out all those houses there on the beachfront. You could probably get that land for $2 million. Or not. Or not. You know, you can't, nothing's guaranteed.
Hasn't scared them away yet in the last 100 years.
No. And I would ask you, and I would ask the county commission to look at allowing the paid parking for some revenue stream to maintain at least picking up the trash and cleaning the bathrooms of those parks. Because, you know, we're absorbing, and I understand, and I'm grateful, even though I voted against it, of the 12.5% that we're going to get from the TDD. But we have, if we're going to have to maintain this, we're going to have a revenue stream somewhere. And so I would just ask that y'all allow us at some point, and if the county wants to do what we do at Henderson Beach State Park and say, if you're a resident of Okaloosa County, you know, we'll pay your parking, or we'll give the city $100 a day or whatever for parking, and people in Crestview or Fort Walton Beach or whoever, Niceville wants to come over the bridge, that's fine. But we do the same thing. And I would ask the staff, my memory is we have tripled our Henderson Beach contribution for our parking permits. But I want y'all to confirm how much, because I remember in the beginning, it was next to nothing. And I thought, this is chump change. Heck yeah, everybody can go, we can have a place for people to go to the beach. And now it's like real money, you know? So I would just ask you to do that.
Thanks.
Well, it is real money.
It is.
And, but no, I support this because God's not making more beachfront property.
Right.
And we've had opportunities before, and if we let this opportunity, you know, we can say, well, we could have spent it over here, we could have done something else. but in the end, the people that live in this town want to go to the beach.
Yes, they
And
do.
They
We just had a
need to have a place
presentation
to
for
do
that.
it. Thanks.
The presentation about the traffic. God. All right, I'm going to make it quick. Tourism is what feeds our community. And the main reason we have the fourth lowest ad valorem tax in the state is because of tourism. And that's just a fact. Okaloosa County's got the seventh lowest tax, third lowest tax in the state for the very same reason, that and Eglin Air Force Base. The Destin brand was and still is somewhat at risk. We buy the second property, our brand is secured forever. And I want to refute the comment about that priority being reduced or lowered. Section 1, critical priorities 1-1 was to offer a livable wage for our people, and that was the highest priority of this city. Number 2 was completing the 2-lane crosstown connector / linear park, and that we've been working on all year. And number 3, 1.3, was public beachfront acquisition initiative. And so it's still one of the highest priorities of this city. It meets, I think it says, 5 of the 6 strategic goals all the way out to 2026. I wanted that to be on the public record. Mr. Braden, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question for the young lady in the back. How did we reach the price at 15.7 million?
The Tarpon property is 14 million is the purchase price. And that's based on 2 appraisals that we did and provided to you all. The one was, they were both appraisals were over 14. One was 14,450, and one was 14.5 something. So they're.
And the purchase price was how much?
14 flat, yeah.
Thank you. Just wanted that on the record.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Let's vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Chairman Ponder, would you like to make a parting comment, seeing how we're still in business and we're still going to buy some beach?
Congratulations. I can't thank you enough. You know, most of y'all made some amazing, in fact, all y'all made amazing comments. But for me, the foundation thing is it's partnership. Man, we live and work with each other. This is one great thing we get to do together and celebrate. It doesn't minimize other opportunities. We're always going to have them. But as been said multiple times, how do we take something good? We can maybe, if that's a consensus of this board, let me know, and I'll be glad to bring it up to the other commissioners if that's what you want. But I'm not going to go out without it being a unanimous decision, and I think we should massage it through. Mr. Bagby just talked about, and maybe Mr. Wagner, do we do something different? We mentioned Crestview, Fort Walton, what about Destin residents? They shouldn't have to, that's the deal, they shouldn't have to pay either. And so I think it's, and how we look at that is, we got to be mindful. But if that's what y'all's consensus is, let me know, and I'm happy to bring it up. If it's not, well, we can revisit it later. We start with what we got, and then we can revisit that later. But I'm excited about where this goes. I'm excited about the opportunity, what we can do together. I think it's legacy. I think Mr. Destin, one of y'all said that. And that's something that our kids, our grandkids look back and say that, you can associate your name and your vote with that. I know I'm proud of it. That just by the opportunity, we get to vote on it tomorrow to bring it to full circle. Then I guess you'll come back and have a second reading here in a few weeks. So, Mayor, thank you for letting us come again. I want to thank your staff and our staff as well. They've worked on it for a while to try to fine tune this thing, and I think it's very honorable in terms of how they looked at each thing and made it. I was kind of honored to each side. I think each side comes out, and I think with feeling good about the transaction and what we're doing together, and that part is I'm very proud of. And so thank you for having us, and congratulations again, and look forward to working with y'all.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
All righty. Thank you for staying here too, through all that. All right, let me get back to my little schedule here. We are done with our ordinances. So next up, Councilman. Well, I'm going to throw a curveball. Councilman Smith, you go first.
You have a strategic plan discussion.
Yeah, you have a discussion. I'm allowed to go either way, and I like to do that just to break it up. But no, to keep in order, Mr. Braden, you go first. Go
I'm
first.
good, Mayor.
All right. Mr. Wagner.
All right, I'll make the first one short.
I forgot I
So I
can't
just went
change the
through
agenda
and kind
order.
of figured out how we got to this agenda meeting.
I
And
usually do
the
that
idea
by
just being, trying to get some more participation and get some more collaborative efforts from our constituents, ourselves. And, most of the time, by the time we get to this, it's 10, everyone's a little grumpy and hungry and wants to go to bed. So my consideration, and after talking to some of the other committee members, is I was thinking about bringing the committee back, and probably not a good idea. But I wanted to consider, bringing our stuff up to the very beginning. So if we are representing a constituent, if they want to come out here and their public opinion and have us kind of communicate that was just something I had as a meeting change. Nothing crazy on that end, but I just wanted to try to facilitate as much citizen output and collaboration as possible on that end. The League of City was great. I'll go to the fire department instead. That's something that we need to address. We've gone through a couple budget hearings, and I've just got word of this. We're not going to have the same amount of lifeguards next year as this year if we don't figure out where this money's going to come from. Chief Sasser said it takes $31,000 a year to put a lifeguard on a stand, and that was through just the new beach access that we had. With the pricing increasing, we've increased our price, and they're at a difference of $140,000, and they've never asked for a raise. We've consecutively given them $100,000 since '07, so we've definitely supported our safety, but with the increase in COLA, with wages, I thought that was an acceptable time to talk about if we're going to prioritize our community safety on the water, and if the fire department also deserves part of that COLA. So I just wanted to bring that up and see if we're interested in, figuring out what we're going to slash in the budget to make this happen, or are we just going to come back and have less lifeguards this year? So.
Would you like to, is Crystal here? Or how do you think that we ought to address that particular issue? It was actually brought up before. You may have not been here, but the lifeguard issue was brought up, correct? You talked about that. So what would you like would you just like some guidance from the council to squeeze another little drop out of the lemon, or how do you think we ought to approach it?
Crystal, let me jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this requires a bit more finesse. Go ahead, Lance.
Thanks. I'd like the opportunity to speak with the chief myself so that I can find out information I think you all would need to have before you make a decision. If it's time to bump it, then we try to figure out how to do that, or if we have to shuffle priorities. But I don't have enough information right now to know how to advise you on this because I have not been briefed on this by the chief. So I'm happy to do it.
Next meeting, put it on the
Happy to do it.
agenda?
Yeah.
All right, you'll have a report and all that, and then we can make motions and
Yep.
vote.
I wanted to make sure we talked about it before the budget's done. And this is a safety matter, so it better be not done.
No, it's not too late. With regards to a budget, you can change.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
you
well,
can,
and this is what I'm talking about. Everyone's packing up, and now it's not important. So that's why I want this kind of information on the front end, so we can have these discussions, not shut up, let's go home.
But Bobby, you can make inter-budget transfers relatively easy compared to outside funding sources.
Okay.
So even if this budget got passed and that wasn't increased, it could have happened fairly easily. It would take an
Okay.
action from the council.
I know.
but no.
I know.
$75,000 in our contingency that we could take it out of that if we.
And now we're having the conversation, so I appreciate it.
yes, you weren't at the workshop.
I was at the workshop, and I brought it up, and you said to bring it up here.
You want the virtual one?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's a thing called a budget amendment,
We'll fix it.
but in the interim, you're going to do your
I'll
due
bring it back.
diligence.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
That's all you want?
That's all I got.
All right, cool. Mr. Dustin?
I'll speak on that issue since Bobby brought it up. we haven't increased our money going to that lifeguard service in 15 years.
Yeah, 07.
Meanwhile, look at the other public safety expenditures we make, and I think you will see they went up quite a bit. And ultimately,
Big time.
lifeguard service, public safety is at the very core of what municipalities and counties do.
Health, safety, and
I'm
welfare.
very proud that the fire district took it on, but it's not mandated. I mean, ultimately, that's our responsibility, so I'd be happy to look at helping them out a little more than we did. And as far as a budget amendment, we haven't done our budget yet. That's what those two hearings are
We're
for.
lifelong
We can
family
make,
friends.
But the last time I was at a budget workshop, when I was on the line,
Yeah,
the
I
mayor
get it.
addressed me to do it here.
yeah, I
So
get,
here
I
I
just
am.
point out that that's the object of having
decision.
budget hearings is to change the budget.
I don't
So
hold that
we've got
against
plenty
you,
of time
Kev.
to do it. And on that note, I don't have anything else.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bagby.
Couple of things, Mr. Mayor. The one thing I would say on this, I'm amenable to raising it, but I would also, one of the things Walton County did, that you can talk to Chief about, is talk to some of the condominiums or subsets of the community. Rosemary Beach is paying for their own lifeguard, Watercolor's paying for their own lifeguard, so we have some condominiums, particularly on Holiday Isle. If they want a lifeguard stand and they want it right in front where all those renters, those short-term renters are, then they might be willing to pony up. Just take one of these and pass it. I did. The other thing, three things I want to do. City manager evaluation. I kind of like Councilman Wagner's idea of flipping it, so I'm not going to bring a proposal. I was going to bring a proposal on Lance's propose a pay increase, but I kind of like the idea of flipping and making a 2% COLA and maybe a 4% merit, and then we could decide. So I don't want to tie it into a 2% merit right now if we decide to change it and flip those two numbers. So I will make that when we decide what we're going to do on the raises, because that actually I thought was a great idea. But what I would like, so that's the current year. Going forward, I don't like the process that we have. And I understand why we didn't go back to the old process where the mayor basically counseled the city, got all our inputs without any names on them, and he basically came up with a generic, or not a generic, a compilation of the inputs, or she, when Sam was here, and it established a person who was responsible, so that we didn't go 4 years where the city manager didn't get a raise, which I just find unconscionable. Having said that, a different way to do that is, and we do this in my business, we establish metrics at the beginning of every fiscal year. And so I have, I think, 12 or 13 metrics. Each one of my managers has 10 or 12 metrics. Some of my metrics are just roll-ups of their metrics, but I would suggest that, I would ask that going forward in 2023, at the first meeting in January, and I just threw down some ideas this afternoon, because Crystal told me or told us in the budget hearing, well, we only use 80% of our hours, which tells me we only have 90% of our positions filled for about 90% of the time. That would mean we use 81% of our hours. So I said, if we're only using 80%, let's have the city manager work on staffing. Our job is to resource him. His job is to resource the staff and make sure that they have the people they need to do the job that we've told him we want done. So I just threw down some things. There should be a budget metric. There should be a personnel metric, a staffing metric. There should be a training metric, a certification metric, a project management metric, but all of, collectively, and we have time, we have 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever, to sit down with the city manager and say, okay, well, come up with some ideas. So I would ask that, Lance, you come up with some ideas by the second meeting in September, and then at the first meeting in October, we will approve your metrics or we'll discuss your metrics and hopefully approve them for fiscal year 22-23. And then when we get to August of next year, we can go, how did Lance do? And Lance got 80%, he got 100%, he got 90%, and then there's not a linear, because I never get 100% of all my metrics, because there's always a couple of stretch goals, and we'll have a couple of stretch goals in there for him. But then we can say, here's the merit increase he deserves of 4% or 2% or whatever we say the merit's going to be in 2023, and then we can vote on that. And then that way it doesn't put it just on one council member or on the mayor or whatever, because I know there's a lot of reticence to do that. So I would just ask that we think about doing this, and I will defer on making my merit recommendation for the city manager until we actually determine what merit's going to be for next year. Two other things.
Jim, can I
Yes,
interrupt? Just
sure.
a follow-up?
Yeah, sure.
Are you asking, I just want to be clear, are you telling him that we want him to come up with these and have it ready for us in January? Or are we just hoping that
in
they're going to do
October, our
this?
fiscal year, my fiscal year at work starts in January. That's why I use that example.
October.
Our fiscal year starts 1 October, so I
Right,
would want
but
him to have,
Is this just your suggestion?
that's my suggestion to the council, yeah. I mean, if somebody's got.
I like it. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I like it, Jim, but I just want to make sure that from leaving this meeting, if this is what you're suggesting and that a lot of us like, then
Yeah.
we want to make sure that it's going to be there then. If,
And-
if this is what other people like
Yeah.
as well, unless
And
you're
I-
wanting to do that next meeting or something.
I can make a motion now, or because I have city manager evaluation on here, or we can do it next meeting, or we can just do a consensus, because we have to have a better system than what we have right now. I know that for a fact. You know, and I understand any council member can make a motion at any time to give a city manager a raise, a merit raise, and we can do it in April if we want, but we have to I'm a process guy. I have to have a process, okay? Thanks. Appreciate that, Bobby. So, yeah, I'll make a motion that we we direct the city manager to develop draft metrics for FY 22-23 by the second meeting in September and bring them back to the council.
Have a motion? I have a second. Anyone want to add to that? Seeing none, let's go ahead and take a vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Anything else, Jim?
Two quick things. I would like to appoint, and I don't have her packet here in front of me, but I talked with my member of the Parks and Recreation Committee, Blaine Leesfeld, and he hasn't made, I think he's made one in the last 6 months, and I understand he's a really busy guy. And he understands, and he agreed to step down. And so I would like to appoint in his place Lisa Mason to the Parks and Rec Committee. She is the president of the Holiday Isle Improvement Association. She spoke to us about the boat. I think most of you know her, but you've at least seen her. And so I would like to recommend she be appointed.
Second.
Okay.
Got a motion, got a second? Seeing no discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't volunteer around here.
She volunteers.
Don't volunteer around here.
Yeah.
Yeah, see what I'm talking about? Vote is unanimous, so moved.
And last thing, city manager, would you update us on the citizen survey that's going to be out sometime this month?
Webb, you want to take that?
I'll be happy to. We did reach out to Polco for that today, and unfortunately, I can't give you an exact timeline, but what we will do, because they did not get back with us, but we will get that to y'all, as well as we will be happy to do some social media posts in order to get that information out.
That's for what?
This is for the citizen survey.
Well, we vote, yeah.
We just need specific.
I was thinking about Joe's Bayou ramp, and I was.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Aber.
Nothing tonight, Mayor, thanks.
Mr. King.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Mr. Schmidt.
I appreciate it. Thank you. If y'all could just bear with me for a little bit.
We must.
Thank you. Right. So, we got, speaking of lifeguards, we got a lot of email and discussion going on about holiday aisle issues, beach issues, parking issues, trash issues, and all that. Right. And so I asked today, it's our beach, it's our park, we advertise it. I guess we have requested the lifeguards to go out there. So should we not have a plan for those lifeguards or know what their plan is to alleviate themselves? If we're not providing them bathrooms, how are we handling that from the city? Or if it's not our responsibility? But have you talked to Chief Master today?
I did reach out, but I have not heard back yet.
Gotcha. I mean, I know a lot of things were said in these emails, chains, but me personally, I feel like if it's our beach and we're responsible for it, then we should at least answer to how people go to the bathroom, that we are asking them to be out there. If the condo wants a lifeguard, like Jim said, I'm not sure if that was about this topic. I mean, okay. I mean, I agree with you on there. Next thing is, with all this stuff, there's a question that continues to be asked about, do we have the approvals that says that we can have this park without providing minimal services and facilities? Is this a legitimate question? Is this accurate or legal, or, I mean, they keep on throwing this out there, so.
I mean, I feel like we've answered it, just not given the answer that the gentleman is looking for. There's not a permit for what he's proposing. We have all of our legal authorizations from DEP to have that beach open to the public. We have to keep it open to the public per the deed and other documents, MOU with DEP and so on.
Okay.
I've actually forwarded all his correspondence to DEP
Right.
and to our rep, so they know what's going on. And
in that deed or permit that we had with them for years, that there is no requirement about minimum provisions that we'll provide?
No,
anything like
there's
that?
not. But I would say, and I've tried to explain this to the gentleman, and the only reason I've stopped responding is because if council wants me to re-engage, we will. But at this point, we've already told him we have a plan in place. It's on the path to coming to fruition, and DEP is not going to construct those facilities until that road's there. The road should be there within a year.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, I don't want to put you on the spot, but there was something that was sent out from a citizen, and you sent us a response recently, and I appreciate you sending that, because I was waiting to, I was going to be asking eventually, somebody, so thank you for heading that off and sending that out. I have heard some of that frustration from people sitting out here in the lobby sometimes, and I know, like you said, our permits are increasing, people are using it. Of course, there's people that have issues, we all know that, and I support the things that you said and what, your building officials and everybody are doing in there. I would add, if this hasn't been thought about, is, because I've used the system a couple times and I've had to get some help, there's tools that you can make, video tutorials, it's called like Loom and things like that. Do we have a plan, or do we have something already? It's easy to say, hey, come down here, I'll show you, because we know you, but the Joe guy that doesn't know anybody in the city office, if he could click a button that shows him A to Z on a video, do we have something like that already, or that we're going to do?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the comment. Like I said in my communication, I typically do not engage that way, but I thought the comments were overboard, and I don't have a problem with folks pointing out the issues that we need to deal with, and it's a system that is new to us and to the public, and therefore improvements are always on the horizon. As a matter of fact, going to the point that you just raised, we have a catalog of the issues that we're hearing and trying to find out how we can best help folks. So we're doing everything possible to get this thing across. I just ask to the public and you all folks to understand that we're doing the best we can, and let's minimize the discussion to the issues that are germane to to the problem. Otherwise, we're going to be all over the place and miss out on the opportunity that we currently
Right,
have.
and I appreciate that, but, I've heard about the catalog before. I know y'all have that, but I'll just, from my personal experience in my businesses, in this day and age, a video catalog of the processes of how to do things in my business helps my employee know how to do it. And so for our customers, the building, if it, the contractor, whoever, it doesn't know how to use a computer very well, it doesn't take, if maybe a staff member could just go through the process in one day or a couple hours, there's a video like that. It's ready to be posted on social media, or something, just a thought.
Point well taken.
Yeah.
We'll follow through.
Thank you. Speaking of emails, we get a lot. We get a lot. We get a lot from some amazing citizens who want to help staff, want to help the city. I mean, they love this town. And, we get emails from people that are complaining as well, right? I mean, we get them all, and there's a lot of them. We get a lot of emails about code violations, and a lot of the, comments is about Compass, and we're not just talking about that. It's not updated. It's not, it hasn't been updated yet by code officials, or hasn't been updated by this person or that person. There's usually a reason. The code officer left early, and now he hasn't updated because he's not back in yet until the next day. I've heard that one probably a few times, and I'm not saying it's not valid. It's just you hear the same reasons back in, a few different times. So, one, I just want to continue. I know it's a learning. I know it's new, but it seems like Compass not having some information, at least the emails that we get, that's always a driving issue with what's going on at this violation or what's going on with this complaint. And I know it's new. I know we're doing the best we can and all that. I get it. But if Compass was updated by somebody, a lot of the emails wouldn't continue to come because when they went there, it'd be there. So, I'm sure y'all are working on that, but just for me, I think it would be extremely urgent to try to figure out how to keep that thing updated with code or anything else, building permits and all of it. Again, this is not a slight. It's just the emails we get, it's about Compass not being updated, and they keep emailing. Well, if it was updated, then they wouldn't bother y'all, type of thing. So, and I'll continue. I apologize. But you want to respond on that? I'm sorry if you have a response.
That'll give you time to think.
Rhetorical.
Go ahead.
It's rhetorical, but go ahead if there is a response.
Absolutely, and we had actually a lot of internal discussions about that this past week and taking action on educating our code compliance with Ms. Corbin. And so it is imperative that we do get those actions in there so the system does stay updated, but also in how we reply to folks who send in, whether it's an email, something through our help desk, ensuring that we have a consistent response with the URL to Compass with their case number so that they can make sure that they go to the right place at the right time to get that information. So thank you for your concerns. That's something that we are working on.
And on that topic, I don't know if we have a policy, probably, maybe not, maybe we do, but when citizens or other people include the council, and then they're including legal team, then they're including Lewis or Noel and everybody in the entire city, what's the chain of command at who is responding? I assume y'all have back office conversations and then you tell somebody to respond, but I feel like it'd be good if you could present us, Lance, with, rather than having, I'm not saying always, but rather than having, Kyle or Kim respond, and maybe they've chosen to, maybe they were asked, I don't know, but their response is a legal fee response, and maybe that's part of what you told them to do. I don't know, or sometimes we have the PIO respond, which is maybe that was the reason that's acceptable, but then when we continue to get multiple emails, is there a point that from the very beginning we just have a blanket response to people with, here's the links for your code, or if it's not a code thing, just a blanket response of what to do and how to come. And so tell them to come here, or tell them to schedule a meeting with you, or rather than email chains back and forth with different staff members and legal counsel that, you know, and all of that. I don't know, is there a process? And if not, can we generate one? If that makes any sense. I know it's a big one.
It's challenging. I mean, I'm
Sure.
literally myself,
A lot of
and
emails.
not the only one in this room, getting 300-plus emails a day,
Right.
but sitting in meetings for 8
Mm-hmm.
hours a day. So, I mean, usually when I'm reading emails, it's when I'm at my house after work. So I would love to be more timely than that, but I mean, it's just very hard. So Catherine does a very good job monitoring for me. I try to forward ones that I can. I've got Sherry Bethea in our office who also monitors my email in case she comes across something she feels is high enough importance that she forwards it out to Webb or Catherine. So I don't have one answer for this, but I understand what you're
Right.
saying. And I would love to get a process in place to
Right.
help handle it.
It's not just about the timeliness of it, not that aspect. I mean, nobody's expecting somebody to just sit there all day and answer emails, but it's more of the people, the person, you know.
That's answering.
Right, you know.
So, I mean, Ms. Kopp and I communicate frequently. I mean,
Sure.
I don't know that she fires answers out without
But does
us
she always
talking.
have to get involved? Maybe she doesn't have to get involved.
I can
She just shouldn't answer.
I can answer to when I answer. Usually
Right.
Lance and I speak, or whoever on staff and I speak about it before I answer, and they will ask me to answer. But
Right.
sometimes I do answer on my own, but only after some time has gone by and staff hasn't gotten to it. Because at some level, my philosophy, and y'all can change my philosophy if you want to, but mine is like, I represent the city council. So I'm gonna let staff respond, but if they're all in meetings and time is going by and I see things are getting heated, then sometimes I'll just jump in, because otherwise I know they're gonna come to this meeting and it's gonna be on council anyway, and I would like to try to resolve things for you before, if possible. But
Okay. Well, you know, I know it's not easy, but some type of, I mean, I would like to hear, maybe one of the metrics is a chain of command on email responses or something. I don't know how to do it, but I feel like it would be beneficial to some of our
And
staff.
I really appreciate you bringing that up, because I think I've even asked Kim, if you could tell us, you've handled this, so the 7 of us aren't replying to that customer because they waited 5 hours or they waited a day and they don't have an answer. So it's a very legitimate problem.
that's another point. Council members also sometimes ask me to respond if time has gone by.
Right, okay.
No, I think what you're asking for is an ombudsman or ombudswoman, somebody who is the person, and they may not be the knowledge, they may have to go to Lewis, or they may have to go to Code, or they may have to go to Webb or Lance or whatever, and then they respond, you know?
Sure.
Or what is the process? Because you're right, our most expensive response is paying one of our attorneys to respond.
Right.
When,
Handling the city manager's job because
Yeah.
he's getting 200, 300 emails and
Yeah.
isn't answering them.
so,
Right, or, you know, like when Ray sends the packet,
yeah.
if that was an official public records request, maybe that was, I don't know. I mean, that was nice of him to provide all
That's
those
his job,
documents. I don't know if that
Yeah.
was an official public
Oh,
records
okay.
request, though. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But,
Yeah.
you know, if it wasn't, then before we go that direction of taking him and his staff's time to put these things
Yeah.
just because somebody's emailing us, the blanket statement is, if you'd like to put in a public records request, here's how to do it. I don't know if that's like too like, but, you know, just brainstorming there. Last thing is I have actually on my agenda, sorry, is the 22-23 strategic plan. And, you know, and this kind of goes along with the interlocal tonight. It goes along with, you know, budget and a lot of things that, you know, Mayor said what he said, but the strategic plan for fiscal year '23 that we have worked hard on, and then we did a visioning session on, beach acquisition did go down. Has that been voted on, and has that been passed and presented to us? No, it hasn't. The reason I'm told is because, well, it depends on the
Councilman,
budget and how things happen.
The council objectives have.
Oh,
been-
I'm sorry, they
been
have
voted
been.
on.
Okay, I just keep seeing draft. I apologize. Thank you for speaking up. So, yeah, actually, then the council objectives have been voted on, and that public beach one did go down. You know, it's 1.4. Yeah, I get everybody's points about it, and at the end of the night, like I said, we'll have a beach, so there'll be a beach. I don't think I'll probably ever be able to find space on it, but, you know, it's okay. I don't think my constituents wanted it either, but that's okay. It's just, what happens if tonight or tomorrow, we have an opportunity that we could do for a tourism-based project, there's things we talked about recently. So, you know, I guess I misunderstood the strategic plan fiscal year, and we're not completely done with it because it's the management objectives that haven't been appointed. So I apologize if I was misunderstanding on that, but to reiterate, the council objectives, those have been set, and, you know, I just don't feel like we're following those council objectives to the chain that we should be. Phase 1 of beach acquisition was almost done. Nobody asked us about phase 2 until tonight. I never heard anything at this meeting about phase 2 beach acquisition. So while I get about beach acquisition, when does it end though? Is it gonna be a forever a Rolodex of just forever, like it just stays on there and we're just gonna continuing to get contracts, interlocals 2 months before we have to buy it and we just gotta buy it? But I feel like that process was not set up correctly to me personally, but, you know, that's just my thoughts and feelings of others as well. But that's all I have. Thank you all for your patience.
And on the sports tourism,
I didn't even bring up sports tourism.
well, you mentioned it as
Well,
if we have
I didn't bring it up.
opportunity.
Didn't bring it up. I didn't say sports tourism, but go
Because
ahead.
sworn I heard those two words come out of his mouth.
No,
It's okay.
Yeah,
There's
it's
just
okay.
opportunities.
Yeah.
But, and you're right, and I'll let you speak. I apologize,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I forgot that.
Yeah.
We've had an opportunity to upgrade a baseball facility that we're still talking about 2, 3, 4 months, and we can point fingers of who we're waiting on.
Has
and we're gonna
nothing to
find
do
out.
with-
No,
has
we're
nothing
gonna
to do
find
with
out in
beach
September.
acquisition.
We're gonna find out in September,
Yeah.
but it's just.
Yeah, the
we
only
should
thing
we
I
should
would
upgrade
say.
it then. If we're all about upgrading sports, let's upgrade it.
And I understand there's a contingent in the community. There's lots of contingents in the community, but one has young kids that do travel ball or have grandkids that do travel ball or whatever, or lacrosse or soccer or whatever. It is hard, and I would encourage you to go talk with Jennifer. It is hard for Walton County and Okaloosa County to get into that in their beachfront communities, because Walton County looked at it when I was TDC director, and it was like, sure, we can build this, we got the money, there's plenty of land in Walton County south of the bay. The problem is that's not what the people really wanted. They wanted parks for their they wanted sports fields for their kids, because if the TDC funds it, guess what? The TDC's mission is to fill that thing 24/7, 365 with people from Dallas or Chicago or Louisville or Kansas City or whatever, not for our kids. So our kids get kicked off so that the sports tourism, and when we looked at it, that wasn't and I don't know, Jennifer probably looked at it, that wasn't our target demographic, because those traveling, and I'm not saying it's the families in Destin, but that demographic was 9 kids in a hotel room, $99 a night, and then the parents staying in another hotel, you know, and it was hotel centric, and it was, no, I know, but I just say it's
Mr.
gonna be tough.
Presson, you done, Mr. Schmidt? You done, Kev? All right. The vote was 6-1. We are going to buy beach. That's for the public comment. First reading. Mayor, will you please welcome our new city engineer? And I will gladly introduce Mr. Ryan Scott, the much needed and we're really glad to have you, new city engineer, Ryan Scott. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Now stay for a while.
Please don't leave.
All right, I just want to make one comment because we've had some back and forth between everybody and me and Mr. Smith. Every council member on this council can any time initiate an initiative and any idea, whatever it is. Just because we've pressed on with one of the initiatives and made a commitment doesn't mean that any of you can't bring up and start another one and get council support and do it. That's kind of what we do on a regular basis. So the city manager manages the day-to-day operations. This council sets policy, makes decisions that the city manager wants approval for, and their other good job is to create the vision documents and initiatives and put breath into it and make it a living, breathing deal. So if you got a pet project that you would like to see, bring it to this council and breathe life into it and make it happen. And that goes for everybody here. And that's what I'm going to close with. So, land use attorney.
4 things. No, I have nothing.
You're fired.
You need to vote.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Joking.
Nothing.
Kyle.
Nothing.
Hallelujah. All right. We're not done yet. City manager, and then we're going to have public comment.
I don't have anything this evening.
You're the man. All right. Last last bite at the apple. I appreciate everyone that stayed here to the bitter end. I wish there was 30 or 40 more of you that had the same passion and compassion for our city to endure all of us on a regular basis. Come on up, Marcy, and then y'all can just come up one after another, and we'll adjourn this meeting when public comment is over.
I know, it's one of the reasons
I'm shaking like a leaf.
shirt.
I'm with you. I should have wore long pants. Go ahead, ma'am.
Marcy Bell, 3 Gulf Breeze Court. So because I was the elephant in the room for conversation, I just want to talk. Oh, it was not painful for me at all. I want to explain a couple of things. So since the beginning of the year, we've been through 3 leaders of the Code Compliance Department. We've had Joey, we've had Lance, and now we have, I'm going to call you Miss Corbin because I don't know how you would like to be addressed at this point. Thank you, Kimberly. So with that said, when Lance became in charge of the department, I wasn't having meetings with you about that department, but I would come and meet with you. And at that point is when I started sending emails. Back then, it was very few, and then I asked him, and I said, so how are my emails? And he's like, great, I didn't know all this was going on. So I picked up my pace on my emails. For that, I apologize. It was just kind of how it happened. And I always tried to figure out how I was going to write them. Should I write it this way? Should I write it that way? How much information? I mean, I spent a lot of time getting my information together for you guys so you would know exactly what I was seeing. So he would know what I was seeing, so he would know exactly what was going on. I apologize that it was Holiday Isle, because that's where I live, and I always say that. On to the next point was, I have been asked by Kimberly Kopp, is this an information only? I always tried to tell you guys when it was just an information only and not an actual call. I've really tried to figure out how to do that. No, this is a report. No, it's not a report. Which leads me to being complaint driven. I would like to see us be more proactive. I'd like to say that on the public record now that we have a new director. This past weekend, I had a pumping in the street. We all know about that. But that's been going on. Like, that's not something new. That's something I've been addressing for years. The only reason that I had put on there, and I really try to put in red, please advise, is because at that point, I'm asking, just acknowledge me, just do something. Like, I'm not looking for a novel or anything like that. Andy was doing it at the time. It was happening at the time, and there's gallons and gallons and gallons being pumped in. I'm not saying that's the whole problem at my street, but it's definitely contributing to the problem. Let's see. I do have a huge concern that I want to address here. I want to address the fact that I do see code compliance officers that have been told about something that are just driving by. They're ignoring it. I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm not here to name people, but I'm telling you that you have code compliance officers that know that I've reported something, I know it's been sent, and it's being ignored. I have an issue with that. I have a huge issue with that. And when I become frustrated, I'm frustrated because I know that's going on, because I'm witnessing it with my own eyes. It's not somebody else telling me about it. And then the last thing I just want to note is there had been mention, before March, that there may have been situations where officers were just parking the trucks and not going anywhere. So my question is, if there's GPS on these trucks, which I think there are, I think there was a conversation a couple years ago, let's use that. Let's make sure that they're doing the job that we're paying them to do. And if you want me to be out there, just hire me.
Thank you, ma'am. We have positions open. Anyone else? Come on up, John.
Poor John, he hung out.
All right, John Stevens. I'm tired, so if I'm mumbling, I'm sorry. You guys were talking about how like everything's getting more expensive. One way to generate more money, increase BTRs. Hasn't been upgraded or hasn't been updated in 20 years, I believe. Is that right? Another thing, y'all talk about beach paid parking. One thing you do is offer a reimbursement plan. That way you're offering it to the locals. Half the people ain't even going to follow up with it. Therefore, you're getting that money anyways. Last thing, you're talking about with the whole parks and recs, making the sports complexes better and all that. I saw on the impact fee study, it showed Panama City, and I believe the parks and rec fees were double what we're doing. I mean, look at their complex center. It's pretty awesome. That's all I got.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Sandy Trammell, 3823 Indian Trail. I just had two things I forgot to mention earlier today. You guys got a list of the volunteers on the volunteer councils. Please, please, please make every effort to fill every slot. We have, and Lewis can back me up here, we've had to cancel meetings right and left because we don't have 4 people that can attend. Never in the history of Destin has this happened, except in the last 3 years. I've been on volunteer committees for almost 20-something years, and never have we had these problems before.
Sandy?
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe we ought to revisit some of have the council members that nominated some of these people reach out to them and say, look, your attendance is less than ideal because I saw some of the same names over and over and over again. So that may be part of, maybe try to hold the folks that volunteer to be a little bit more accountable?
Well, yes, both. Our guidelines say if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, your council member should bring you up at a council meeting and slap your hands and you're off the committee. I guess is what they do. But anyway, it's much more convenient and ethical, I think, to call them and say, hey, if you don't have time for this, please resign, let me get somebody else. And all of us know people, every one of you get emails every day talking about what the city should do. Well, dadgummit, call them and say, put them on a committee. I'm serious. These committees are working entities. They can work for you. That's exactly right. But do you know what? The value of what they do makes them want to be here and do more. That's the piece that we're missing. And for years, we just sat there in meetings and we listened to our liaison talk, and then we all went home and we thought, well, gosh. So now we're working on writing goals and objectives and doing things within our committees that follow your strategic plans and getting things done. But again, your committees can act as your first line of communication. So your 300 emails might go down to 290 if they would come to meetings. The other thing I'm asking is, the Harbor CRA committee met, and we thought about Christmas decorations, because we're always getting hit up with, there's not enough Christmas decoration. Well, what we wanted to do basically was to identify the harbor as a specific area for Christmas decorations. Well, right now we're in the midst of redoing 98 and all that, so it's really hard. So what you voted on tonight, we're going to wrap 4 trees at Royal Melvin Park, because we don't know if the park's going to be finished, but we can wrap these trees without the park being finished. So anyway, yeah, please. Anyway, one of the other things that was brought up, and you got a picture of it in there, I recommended doing anchors down the sides of Highway 98 on the poles. Well, I had Mr. Burgess talk to Florida Power and Light, and they weren't real hip on that. So we need some behind that so that we can get something that will identify as you come down Destin. If you put it in the median, it's interfering with traffic, and can cause accidents. So we are going to keep the trees, and for now we're going to wrap the 4 trees on Royal Melvin in white. But if there's anybody that has any kind of clout with FP&L that we could work on getting some, because we're only going to have, after we bury the electric lines, we're only going to have cement poles. So, not cement poles, light poles. So if we have light poles, can we at least get an outlet at the bottom of the light pole so we can do some of this?
We'll definitely work on that. What I'd like to do is just recommend that everybody got that list of committee members, and you saw all the red names. If you'll reach out to your nominees and just encourage them to be prudent and go to the meetings, and or just say, hey, you know what, I just don't have the time, and then they can resign and y'all can reappoint. So thank you, Sandy.
The other thing is contact the chairman of the committee, because sometimes they have some people they know that might want to volunteer for.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sandy.
Anyone else?
10 o'clock.
Seeing none, meeting adjourned.